The next one is a different picture of David Grunwald, and I'm referring to State's Exhibit number 18. He's with his girlfriend, but there might have been a couple of months separating one photo from the other.
Sure.
You said you remember him from Facebook?
Yeah, after, of course, the articles covering the trials and stuff.
Oh, you mean post-November 13th?
Post-November 13th.
I understand. Of course, State's Exhibit number 22, do you recognize the person in that exhibit?
Yes, sir. Eric Allmendinger.
Now, one person I haven't asked you about, State's Exhibit number 23, Dominic Johnson. Did you meet him?
No, I never did, sir.
Did you ever hear his name in conversation at the Allmendinger home?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit number 24 is Austin Barrett, who also went by the name of Andrew. Does this photo, does it look familiar or not?
No, sir. If anything, I would probably mix him up with that gentleman, sir.
Okay. And there's some other photographs that I can show you. State's Exhibit number 26, do you recognize this?
Is that David Evans?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, sir. Then I do.
Okay. And State's Exhibit number 27, Devin Peterson.
Correct.
You said you met him before, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. During your interaction with the people that you identified and said you had interaction with between August 25th and November 13th of 2016, did you ever observe any unusual conduct or conduct that had maybe made you raise your eyebrows as to why people are doing certain things?
Could you perhaps elaborate a little more, sir?
Right. Did you ever see any of the people engage in conduct which would be akin to emulating gangs or being gang members?
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. Like the blue bandanas and such.
Well, I'm going to have
Oh.
you testify about it. I don't want to suggest it, but did you see any type of conduct? Let's start out with Eric Allmendinger, and I'll show you some photographs in a minute. Tell us what you remember.
Of course, this is after the academy. Pardon me, sorry. You know, blue bandanas and gang signs in their pictures, and I did recognize some of that stuff, yes, sir.
All right. When you said their pictures, just from your memory, without me showing you the photos, Eric Allmendinger in some photos?
Yes, sir, such as like Snapchat and
All right.
Facebook.
Devin Peterson?
I don't remember specifically seeing Devin Peterson, but definitely Eric Allmendinger doing it.
David Evans?
I can't recall a picture that I can say for sure.
Bradley Renfro? And again, I'll show you some photos to ask if you recognize them.
Not that I can quite remember, no, sir.
Okay, but Eric, you definitely remember Eric, right?
Yes, sir, I definitely remember.
What kind of things was Eric doing in the photographs that you saw?
Like I said before, just had blue bandanas and, as far as I can remember, gang signs in the photos.
All right. And some of the photos had writings on them?
Not that I could remember now.
Not that you would remember the content of, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, no, so this is Palmer. It's not an inner city type place.
Correct.
As far as you grew up in Palmer your whole life, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there a high prevalence of gangs in the Palmer area?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
All right. What you saw in the photographs, let's stick with Eric Allmendinger for the time being. What was your reaction to seeing those photographs?
I thought it was silly, of course. I mean, having known him for so long and then seeing that kind of behavior, I thought it was just perhaps a phase.
Okay. Now, I suppose if you see it once, it's like, all right, he did it once. But did you see numerous photos of that type?
Yes, sir. I would start to see, more and more pop up the more I'd look.
Did you develop a concern or not that Eric Allmendinger was doing this more frequently?
It was more of a concern, not that he was doing it more frequently, that he was doing it in general. I just hope that maybe it would stop.
All right. I get, correct, I'm getting the impression you just thought there was no point to it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, basically, no point.
Now, let's take it a little bit further. Did you ever see Eric Allmendinger, who was 16 in November? Did you ever see him with firearms?
Oh, yes, sir.
And what type of firearm did you see him with?
I'm not too sure on the specific name of the firearm, but I know it was a Ruger, about 40 caliber, maybe 45. That's all I can, aside from the color, that's all I can describe to you.
And had you seen the gun before?
I'm sorry.
Had you seen him with the gun at his house?
Oh, yes, sir.
Numerous times?
Here and there, yes, sir.
What would he be doing with the gun at his house?
He would just have it on him, and then, you know, he would just look at it sometimes.
Did you know whether the gun was loaded when he had it or not?
I couldn't tell you for sure, no, sir.
Now, let's talk about whether your neighborhood was a dangerous neighborhood or not. Did you consider ST Drive, 3 minutes from Palmer, a dangerous neighborhood?
No, sir, not while I was living there. In hindsight, I can tell you that we've had a bad couple of neighbors, but.
Okay. But I'm talking while you were living there, before you moved out, without thinking about what you know about this case. When you were living there, did you consider it a dangerous neighborhood?
No, sir, no, sir.
Did you feel you had to carry a gun around in
No, sir.
Palmer?
No.
All right. I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 3. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 3?
Yes, sir.
All right. How do you recognize it?
That is the gun that Eric Allmendinger had?
All right. And had you touched it before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, had both of you fired the gun before? Did you go to the range or anything?
No, sir, I have never fired that weapon.
All right. And I take it you never saw him fire it?
No, sir.
All right. But this looks like the gun he had, correct?
Absolutely. It looks just like my 9mm version of that Ruger.
All right. And have you seen did he have this gun in his hand in any of the photographs that he was posting?
Not that I could say for sure that I remember.
Okay. And you didn't know the caliber of this gun for sure, right, back then?
No, sir.
You never talked about the caliber?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Let me show you a different gun. This is State's Exhibit number 1. You ever remember seeing this gun or not?
No, sir.
Now, we do have a photograph where there are 2 guns in a waistband. I'm going to pull it out in a second. Do you remember any other guns in the Allmendinger household?
Other than the 40 caliber, no, sir.
Okay. For example, did you ever see any Rodney Allmendinger's guns? No?
Oh, perhaps a 22.
Okay.
But I believe that belonged to Gavin Allmendinger, sir.
All right. I grabbed a number of exhibits here.
Sure.
And these are all admitted already, but I want to ask you whether this is the kind of stuff you saw. State's Exhibit number 183.
For sure.
Did you see this particular photograph or not?
I'm sure I've probably seen that particular photograph, but, pardon me, I couldn't tell you for sure if it was that one.
All right, but is this the kind of behavior you're describing, blue bandana,
Yes, sir.
the C?
The C, yes, sir.
Did you know what that meant even or not?
Oh, of course I knew.
Like,
what that meant.
what did you take that to mean?
You know, the Crips and the Bloods, they have their gang signs that they do, and I believe that's the Crips.
And then David Evans in the background, another C, somebody else, his hand or somebody else's hand
Yes, sir.
with the C. That's the kind of stuff you saw?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The photo I was referring to earlier, State's Exhibit number 124. Now, this is not a good photograph because it's a scanned-in paper, a paper scanned in, so we don't have. But do you recognize one of the guns in the waistband?
I hardly can tell that's a gun, sir.
Okay.
I believe that is the Ruger right there.
Okay. On the, which one is the Ruger?
On the right there.
All right. And do you recognize like whose pants or whose belly that is or not?
Well, strangely enough, it looks like Eric's belly.
So here's State's Exhibit number 44. This is one with Allmendinger, Renfro, and Evans. And Renfro and Evans are doing the C. Did you see this photograph before or not?
Not that one specifically, no, sir.
But is this the type of conduct you're talking about?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
Basis? You want to approach?
State's Exhibit 44, you don't remember seeing this photograph, or do you?
Not specifically that one, no,
Okay.
sir.
But you can identify the people in this photograph, right?
For sure David Evans, for
Yeah.
sure Eric Allmendinger, and if I'm not mistaken, perhaps that gentleman there, sir.
All right. But the C, you've seen Eric Allmendinger do that in person?
Yes, sir. a few
Like, how would he
times.
do it? Like, you're not into the gang stuff, right?
Correct, yes, sir.
Tell us, how would it come up, like, you're hanging out with him? How would he just put up the C, or would he do it, or there has to be some context to this,
Well,
right?
of course, who I am has never had any bearing on Eric Allmendinger. He's always been his own person, so he'll just, I guess he would just do it randomly.
When he's listening to music?
I mean, I can't say for sure that it's the music that makes him do it, but it's, I could say at least part of it.
And did you say that you did see David Evans do the C2 when he was at the Allmendinger house?
For sure, I can say I've seen Eric Allmendinger do it.
Mhm.
I cannot say for sure that I've seen David Evans do it.
This photo 41 of Devin Peterson, have you ever seen that before on Snapchat or Facebook or any of the
No,
social media?
that's not very familiar at all.
Okay. 40 is similar to the other one, a little bit different. You ever seen this photograph?
No, sir, I can't say that I have.
All right. But Eric Allmendinger with the C,
With the C.
that's what you've seen
Yes, sir.
before. How about, this is a more specific one. Eric Allmendinger looks like a selfie, or
Yes,
maybe
sir.
in a mirror, I can't tell, with some words super. Have you seen this photograph? Did that make it to your Facebook or Snapchat or anything like that?
I can't say that I've seen it for sure, no, sir.
What exhibit number was that?
That was 29.
Okay.
36, another photograph of Eric Allmendinger, did you see, do you remember seeing this photograph or not?
Yes, sir, I do remember that
So
one. Yes,
this
sir.
one you did see, right?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, and how did you see this photograph?
I believe Snapchat, if I'm not mistaken.
Now, is it your opinion that some of these become redundant as far as the content of the photographs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you ever have a discussion with Eric Allmendinger about why he does these things? Or are you saying he's just a strong-willed, independent person?
I would say that he is a strong-willed, independent person, yes, sir. You know, anything I might have said back then would have little to no effect.
Right now, but you were older than him, right?
Yes, sir.
But because you knew him for so many years, you decided that you saying something wouldn't really make a difference?
I can tell you for sure it wouldn't make a difference,
Skip
as
that
much
one.
as I wish it would.
All right, now here, Eric Allmendinger and David Evans in number 186. Do you know like what the words like, yeah, 100 means or not?
I mean, I can take a guess and say that it's just,
Well, it's
perhaps.
if he's familiar with the.
I had
the
lay a
group meaning, but,
foundation to see.
You know, you're a younger person, correct?
Wow.
You
Say so.
have navigated on things like Facebook and Snapchat, right?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
You've seen people put certain things and use certain words on
Sure.
photographs. Have you seen this before? If you haven't, then I won't have you guess, but have you seen people use the 100% or 100?
The 100%, yes, sir.
What do you take 100% to mean?
It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's more ironic than anything.
What do you mean?
It's used usually in internet memes, if you would, as the state of irony, but not in this case, I wouldn't say.
But what do you think it means in this case?
Perhaps it's his state of being, but I couldn't say for sure.
I'm showing you an exhibit that hasn't been admitted yet, state's proposed exhibit number 42. We just haven't gotten to the witness who pulled it off the social media, but do you recognize this photograph?
No, sir.
No. But let me ask you some foundationary questions. Do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Absolutely, Eric Allmendinger, sir.
All right, and do you recognize the firearm in that photograph?
Yes, sir, that is the Ruger.
All right, and you said you had one very similar to this?
Yes, sir.
And in a different caliber?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you were familiar with that model,
Absolutely,
that
yes, sir.
style of handgun, right?
Absolutely.
And do you recognize the surroundings here?
Yeah, that is his room in the basement of the Allmendinger household.
Right. So obviously there, is that a mirror, do you know, or is that, or you think, does it look like somebody else took that photo?
Perhaps looks like a photograph of a picture on a phone already there, sir.
Okay, like this being the phone?
That would be the phone, yes, sir.
Okay, got it. But no doubt that this is Eric Allmendinger, right?
No doubt.
Were you afraid of Eric Allmendinger?
No, sir.
Were you afraid of Devin Peterson?
No, sir.
Were you afraid of David Evans?
No, sir.
Were you afraid of Bradley Renfro?
No, sir.
Why not?
They're just not intimidating people.
But Eric Allmendinger had a gun on occasion,
I have many guns.
right? But Eric Allmendinger did the gang sign on occasion.
It's just ignorance, sir.
But Eric Allmendinger wore blue clothes and bandanas.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy. I don't find that intimidating.
Okay. Let me ask you this, more specifically, besides that, did Eric Allmendinger ever threaten you in any way?
No, sir, and if he did, I wouldn't take it seriously because we've been friends for so long.
Yeah. Or any of the other people that you identified here as having met through Eric Allmendinger, did they ever threaten you in any way?
No, sir.
Or did they ever display any aggressive behavior towards you?
Perhaps just general young male aggression, testosterone. That would be about it.
Okay. And you say that you did not know David Grunwald?
No, sir.
Just heard his name, right?
Just heard his name, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Before we get into what happened on November 13th, I want to run a question by you that I don't think I asked you before.
Sure.
This is State's Exhibit number 4, and you testified that you had been to Eric Allmendinger's house a lot.
Yes, sir.
You're fairly familiar with his belongings?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not trying to suggest any kind of answer, I'm just asking a totally open-ended question.
Right.
Did you ever see this at his house or not?
I could not tell you for sure if I have seen many backpacks at his house.
Okay.
Growing up, we've gone to school, elementary school, and
Right.
you know. So
But you don't remember this one in particular?
Not that one specifically, no, sir.
Let's talk about November 13th, 2016, and I have the exhibit with the calendar there in case you needed to refresh your recollection about the day, how November looked back then and what day it was.
Sure.
I understand that you were at Eric Allmendinger's house on November 13th, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and what were you doing there? Do you remember?
Just generally hanging out, watching TV. I think I might have maybe fallen asleep earlier in the day and then woken up to perhaps not woken up to it, but woken up around the same time that Rodney Allmendinger started yelling at David Evans.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Why was Rodney yelling at David?
I guess he hadn't been at the household in maybe, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, it was perhaps 2 weeks.
And what were you and Eric doing before the commotion started?
I can't remember for sure. I think we were just hanging out, though.
And you definitely heard yelling by Rodney, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And was there responses coming from David Evans or not?
Not so much David Evans as it was Eric Allmendinger who jumped to his defense.
And was this going on downstairs or was it upstairs?
I apologize. The basement, sir.
This was in the basement?
Yes, sir.
So am I correct in understanding that it wasn't anticipated that David Evans was going to be there, or was it? Was Eric anticipating it? Did he mention it?
I mean, perhaps Eric was anticipating it. I can't remember for sure. One way or another, he was there.
All right. But the gist of the argument was that Rodney was mad that David Evans had left, right?
It had been gone for so long without, I guess, connecting with him or something along those lines.
And just tell us in your own words, what did you observe happen next?
Just essentially a screaming battle between Rodney and Eric. Not so much screaming from Eric's side. He was more just a wiseacre about it.
And was Eric high at the time, or was he sober at the time, as far as your observations?
I could not say.
Well,
I mean, I don't remember.
okay. But he was able to talk and walk and all that?
Yes, sir.
All right. But you were with them, so there was no marijuana smoking during that day?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. And Rodney's shop, is it downstairs?
Yes, sir.
And Eric's bedroom was downstairs also?
Yes, sir.
And what happened? So we got Rodney yelling, we got Eric Allmendinger smarting off to his dad,
Yes, sir.
and what happened next?
I got, of course, a bit uncomfortable being there with the screaming and about topics that had nothing to do with me. So I let's see. Sorry, it's hard to remember now, but somehow or another, I believe Gavin Allmendinger was there upstairs in the kitchen, and I went up to talk with him a bit before I left, and then I believe it was Eric Allmendinger who brought me out to the garage, which was ill lit, very dark. It was nighttime, I believe just after sundown, and there was a group of people in there. Couldn't remember any faces. I couldn't tell you for sure.
Let me back you up just one step.
Yes, sir.
Was it the old garage that's attached to the house, or the new garage that had the tan siding on it?
Pardon me, the new garage with the tan siding.
All right. And not the shed, right? Because they also had a shed on their property that was a fairly new shed that had a four-wheeler in it, I believe, but it was the new big garage?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
the new big garage.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't believe it even had lighting in it, or it did and the wiring was bad or something, but one way or another, we were just standing around in the garage, and I said, all right, well, bye, Eric, I'm gonna leave now, and then I left.
Right. But you said you saw some, figures or shadows in the garage?
Yeah, it was like a group of kids, perhaps our age.
But you did not make contact with them?
No, sir. It was more strange than anything.
Right. Did you hear anything in the garage coming from the group, or did you smell anything in the garage at all?
No, sir.
Did Eric Allmendinger refer to them or tell you anything about them? Was there any interaction of that type?
No, sir. And that was what made it all the stranger.
Did Eric Allmendinger ask you why you were going home?
I believe so, and I just told him I'm tired and I'm ready to go.
Now, we know so that's November 13th, and then you went home?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you stay home that
Yes.
night? Did you, when you were home, were you looking out the window or paying close attention to any of the goings-on at Eric Allmendinger's?
No, sir.
Did you know how David Evans got to Eric Allmendinger's house?
I know he was dropped off, but I can't remember by who.
You don't remember any statements by him or by Eric Allmendinger about how Evans got to the house?
Not that I can remember.
Right. And were you watching the outside when he got there, or were you in a different place in the house? Were you in the
When
basement?
David Evans had gotten there?
Yeah. Were
I
you
was
in the
down
basement?
Yes, sir.
Are there any windows looking to the outside in the basement or not?
There are, but not to the outside. I believe Rodney might have built his shop right on the windows, and so they just look out to the shop.
All right. Now, you said you were, I mean, you felt uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. But you had a lot of interaction with Rodney before, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the same question I asked about the others. Were you afraid of Rodney?
Not so much afraid, more so just, like I said, uncomfortable.
All right. Awkward?
Awkward, yes, sir.
Okay. And you said you told Eric Allmendinger that was the reason you were leaving?
Yes, sir. I believe.
And so the photos I showed you, you're not able to describe any better the people that were in the garage other than they were people about your age?
Yeah, perhaps. Well,
Can we
I
narrow
tried.
it down to males or females?
I could probably guarantee you it was males. I didn't see any female figures in there, but I couldn't describe it any other way. And the only way I derive the age is from just the general height and weight.
How big is this garage?
I couldn't tell you specific measurements, sir.
No, I know, but let's compare it to this courtroom. Is
To the
it-
courtroom?
Yeah.
Maybe 3/4 the size, perhaps.
And when Eric Allmendinger took you there, was there a big door that was open, or was there what they call a man door was open? What can you tell us about how you were able to see into the garage?
Let's see, I believe there's a side door next to the large door, or doors, perhaps. I believe it was through the side door.
And can you tell us, so if you were looking through the side door, the small door, how far away from you were these people?
Oh, I'm sorry, I went into the garage.
Oh, you went into the garage?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was it dark in there?
Yes, it was very dark.
So how can you tell that there were some people in there? I don't think it has, Judge, to the details of how he was able to see people in a dark garage.
Well, he's kind of discussed it, but I'll let him ask this last one question.
Well, he was there, so I don't think he's speculating. He's a personal observer.
I think he has already stated what he saw in the garage, but I'll let you finish this
Right,
question.
you
Go
said
ahead.
what you saw, but what I'm getting at is the lack of lighting. How were you able to see in the garage?
It was perhaps sundown light or perhaps moonlight leaking into the garage through the windows.
Now, let's talk about after November 13th. We covered November 13th, and when you were at home, you said you didn't see anything unusual happen. Okay, right. But did you continue to have contact with Eric Allmendinger or the others, any of the others that we talked about after November 13th, or not?
Not so much the others, but Eric Allmendinger, yes, sir.
Yeah. Same type of contact at his house?
The only thing that I can recall for sure is when he came over while the police were searching his home and ate dinner with us.
Was he acting any different after November 13th than he acted before November 13th?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cross-examination.
Mr. Ward?
Good morning.
So, the Alaska Military Youth Academy,
Yes, sir.
6 months, and you graduated,
Yes, sir.
got your GED.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, you still have that respect
Thank you.
type of approach with the yes sir or yes ma'am. Were you like that before you went to the academy?
Yes, sir. I tried to be
Respectful and,
more so refined after the academy.
so I just want to, I know that you've had to come testify more than just today.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, just want to clarify some non-essential questions to see if your recollection is based on your recollection or it's been refreshed. Has your memory been refreshed somehow with viewing documents or talking with anybody from the state's office?
Not so much this trial, but the last trial, I believe we reviewed my testimony.
Okay, fair enough. So as far as contact with Eric, previously testified before going to the academy was almost on a daily basis.
Yes, sir.
Not, and today, so you were mistaken when you said it was a couple of times a week?
Oh, I must have been. Before the academy, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then after the academy, I think the question to you, was it more or less the same, a couple of times a week? And you indicated yes, but as I recall that you previously testified it was maybe once every other week after the academy.
Yeah, I'd hate to say more than a couple of times a week because it was definitely less so than before the academy.
Right, okay. And where and when did you first meet Bradley Renfro?
I believe perhaps in I believe Rodney's shop down in the basement is when I first met him.
And was that before or after the academy?
That was after.
Before you went to the academy, you never met Bradley Renfro or never heard his name mentioned by Eric?
No, sir.
Do you think you would have at that time when you were seeing Eric so frequently?
I think perhaps I would have.
When did you first notice Eric starting to wear blue, like the blue bandana? Was that before the academy or after?
After, sir.
Did he seem to engage in any of that kind of display or choice of dress or colors before the academy?
No, sir.
And you sound pretty savvy about social media.
Oh, well, I mean, I use it every day, so.
All right. And were you very much into social media back then as well? Not at the academy, of course, but
Of course not. but,
before and after? Maybe not so much after, but beforehand?
I'd say so, yes, sir.
So your answers were interesting about what you thought about Eric's new behavior since you had come back,
Right.
and that you didn't feel intimidated. Back in those days, did you take many selfies of yourself?
No, sir, I still don't.
Did you find yourself, between Snap and Instagram, maybe Facebook? Or, what other, did you use any other social media?
No, sir, not other
Pretty
than
much it.
Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook,
Okay.
just about those ones.
Did you post much yourself?
Not so much, no.
Mostly responding?
Mostly responding, yes, sir.
Did you find yourself seeing posts from friends or friends of friends, like on Snapchat, where you happen to be in photos that were taken?
Perhaps if I am, I've probably never seen them.
You don't recall?
Not that I recall, no, sir.
So back to Bradley. It was after the academy, and you thought you saw him down in the downstairs basement where Eric Allmendinger's room is.
Yes, sir.
Is that where his father has his glass shop too?
Yes, sir.
Stained glass. Did you spend nights there, or just go home after visiting?
Not after the academy. I didn't spend nights there, but I used to spend nights there predating the academy.
Any reason why you didn't after?
Just more of my own bed kind of person.
Older, more mature?
Yes, sir.
So, did you recognize Bradley Renfro over seeing any of these photos? Had you recalled meeting him?
I'm sorry, could you perhaps elaborate a little better?
Sure. Before you saw these exhibits that Mr. Kalchek showed you, these group snaps,
Sure.
would you have recognized Bradley Renfro if it wasn't pointed out who he was?
I think I might have, because, I've met him once or twice, but it'd be difficult.
I think that, thing is about this, if you don't remember for sure,
Sure.
then you need to say so. Probably did or probably would have is not what I'm asking.
Well, I think
Correct.
the question
What would you-
was, would you recognize him? It did call for some degree of speculation.
So,
Re-ask the question.
yeah.
Okay.
Before seeing these exhibits, would you have associated the name Bradley Renfro with a face?
I can't say for sure.
Right. And have you seen those exhibits before, like last November, do you recall?
Not for sure those pictures, but I have seen pictures in the trials.
And when you first walked in the courtroom and sat down, did you recognize Bradley Renfro for sure?
Not so much anymore. It's been a long time since I've seen the face, and then now seeing it looks a bit different.
From those photographs?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any reason to believe, I mean, you spent a lot of time with Eric, and you noticed how he had taken on this, Blue and Crips, this fascination with Crips. Is that a fair description of what you may have thought about what Eric was doing? I know you said it was stupid or silly, but immature, but.
It was more, I viewed it more as an attempt to emulate them, the
And
actual Crips, that is.
sure, that's sounds real reasonable. Did you ever think about why he might attempt to emulate them?
Perhaps people he was around in school, perhaps music. I couldn't say for sure.
If you recall, did you, now that you know that we're talking about Bradley Renfro, the limited contact you may have had with him after the academy, when you would have first met him, you testified. Was there anything about his behavior or dress that seemed to emulate Eric that you recall specifically?
Not that I recall specifically, no, sir.
And not everybody here necessarily on the jury does social media. So just in case there might be someone or some people that don't know what emojis are, can you explain what an emoji is?
It's, I suppose I could say it's
You spoke about the blue heart, for example.
yeah, it's just a little text picture that I guess says what they want to say, but in a picture, like a pictograph or so.
Right, or at the end of a statement.
Yes, sir.
And you've seen those emojis. It's an app, right, that you can download. Sometimes it comes with Facebook.
Right,
Just a limited number of them.
Now it comes pre-installed on phones.
Okay. And so the blue heart, there are multiple colors of hearts, shades of red and green and other colors
Sure.
of hearts. Do they, these hearts and their colors, do you know if people use them to convey the mood that they're in?
I could say, yeah, probably people do use them to convey the mood they're in.
Red, happy and loving, green,
Sure.
maybe jealous, blue, kind of feeling moody.
Anybody could use emojis for anything, essentially.
Yeah, individualized kind of use of them. And you ever ever have a telephone conversation with Bradley Renfro?
No, sir.
Ever receive a text or social media connect?
No, sir.
Ever see him throw C signs?
I'm sorry.
Ever see him throw C signs?
Not him specifically that I could remember enough to say for sure.
So, despite what you know now since November 13th, your sense, because you knew Eric since you were very young, that this behavior of emulating Crips.
Sure.
Do you still feel that way today, that whatever happened in this case, that his fascination with blue clothing and bandanas and throwing Crip signs are still just silly, immature type of conduct, and that this is what happened here is, who knows, would have happened or not happened either way?
Well, let's see.
I mean, how do you feel about it today? We know how you felt about it at the time you were observing it.
How do I feel about it today? Well, let's see. I still believe that emulating gangs or even being in a gang is ridiculous. But they took it to a whole nother level, and it got dangerous, essentially.
And do you see young youth, you know, in the, say, the 13 to 15-year range? How old were you went to the academy? 17?
About 17, I would say.
Leading up to those years leading up to going into the academy, either at school or on social media, seeing kids that are identifying whatever it is they share in common with each other and posting. Can you think of any examples, whether it's sports, you know, like politics, you know, Republicans red, Democrats blue, or vice versa? Yeah.
Are you asking if
Can you
I
think of instances where kids would share a common interest in?
Well, of course I can I can remember, you know, kids anywhere, you know, sharing what they have in common. It's not unheard of.
Right. I mean, expressing it in the way of clothing or, I mean, I guess an example is the academy. You all had the same clothing as well.
Yes, sir. Sweatpants and sweatshirt, yes, sir.
And why do you think the academy does that?
To prevent individualism, so that we all grow as a unit, as a platoon.
So, I know you went out to the garage briefly, and I was a little bit confused.
Sure.
At first, I thought Eric took you out there. I think I've seen a previous testimony where you testified that David Evans was in the kitchen and said Eric went out to the garage and you went out there to say goodbye.
That definitely strikes my memory a lot more so.
Okay.
That's a lot more familiar, yes, sir.
And did you step all the way into the garage?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And was it pretty, I mean, if that was your objective, is, you know, to go say goodbye,
Yes.
did you hang out for a while, or did you pretty much, you know?
I went in there maybe a couple minutes, you know, like I said, got uncomfortable, you know, not only with Rodney yelling, but also with the situation in the garage. You know, it's just
You
a
were
strange.
feeling uncomfortable, that's why you were leaving, and when you went to the garage and Eric was in there,
Yeah, even more so.
and you were still feeling, and do you remember why? Was it quiet, or?
Well, it's not so much. It was more gut intuition than anything that something was strange.
Okay.
So I left.
Anything to do with the darkness and the quiet?
Well, of course, yes, I imagine so.
And do you recall acknowledging or even being told that Rodney did not want any kids over, certainly not out in the garage or in the trailer at that time?
More specifically in the trailer, not so much that I remember him saying in the garage.
And did you, when you visited Eric, you would often go out to the garage or the trailer, I think you testified.
Yes, sir.
Were you introduced?
I'm sorry,
Were you introduced by
To-
Eric
to whom?
to whoever was in the garage?
No.
And the issue is, the issue of marijuana smell, you know, is pretty much a non-issue in this case, and it wouldn't matter, you know, what your answer is.
Sure.
But before going to the academy, was smoking pot something just you would do when you get together with Eric?
Before the academy, sir?
Yeah.
More than likely, I'm sure I have.
And was it Eric that always was able to provide the pot?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Do you know where it came from? Where his source was?
I believe it's his dad that grew it, yes, sir.
Does Dad know he was stealing his weed?
I don't think so much stealing it as Rodney was giving it to him.
At that time, your age and maturity level, what'd you think about that? Eric gets pot given to him by his father.
I didn't think anything of it other than, oh, he has
It's kinda
pot.
cool, or that's just like wrong, or
It just was what it was.
didn't have any impressions?
No, sir.
But you didn't smell any marijuana in the garage at that time? Could you
Oh.
have and you don't recall?
Predating the academy?
No, that night.
Oh, that night?
Yeah.
Not that I recall, no.
Was David Evans living at the house a couple of weeks before November 13th?
Yes, sir, I believe at least 2 weeks, because that's, as far as I remember, what Rodney was yelling at him about was not being there for 2 weeks.
Had you been over in the 2 weeks beforehand yourself? Did you know David Evans had been living there for a couple of weeks?
I'm sure I have, but not that I could specifically remember.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Redirect?
This feeling of uneasiness about people being in the garage, did Eric give you a heads up earlier that there would be some other individuals on the property?
No, sir.
Now, do you remember in answering Mr. Provost's questions, you said you saw Renfro at the Allmendinger house after the 13th, correct?
I don't recall.
I thought I heard, when he asked you questions, you said you saw him at in Rodney's shop, and it was after November 13th.
Not specifically after the November 13th, but I mean, I've seen Bradley in the shop. That's how I met him.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, because I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you saw him in the shop, was it before November 13th or after November 13th?
I could not tell you.
You
I have no recollection of what date it was.
Okay. When you saw him at the shop, did it appear that he was afraid of Eric Allmendinger?
No, sir.
Did it appear that he was being held captive there by Eric Allmendinger?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You can step down.
Thank you, Judge.
Any objection to releasing him from the subpoena? You can go back home. You're released. Who is your next witness?
Well, I have to go out there and look.
Okay, go ahead. Everybody in the jury okay? Start the next witness and then maybe take a break in 20 minutes or so?
And Judge, the court excused Mr. Ward, right?
Yes, he's free to go. Okay.
Ma'am, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the case now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. May be seated. And for the record, would you please state your full name and spell first and last?
Angela Moira Dicus, ANGELADICUS.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Council.
Thank you, good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
First of all, can you tell us what part of the state do you live in?
Wasilla, Alaska.
Okay. And what I want to, did you travel here to testify?
Yes.
Okay, but I want to talk about that a little bit so the jury just doesn't think that you're tired all the time and whatnot. What time did you have to get up today?
3:55 is when my alarm went off.
And what flight did you catch to Fairbanks?
The 6 a.m.,
And what time did you get to Fairbanks?
6:45 or so.
And then how did you get to the courthouse?
Taxi.
But do you feel like you're clear-headed enough to testify?
Yes.
Okay. Let me first turn your attention to some people, some names. David Grunwald. Did you know David Grunwald?
Yes.
And how did you know David Grunwald?
We had mutual friends, but I only knew him just a few weeks before he died.
Okay. Did you meet him in person or not?
Yes.
And you said you had some mutual friends. Then was this through school or friends of friends, or give us a little bit better idea how you met David?
Well, I actually met him for the first time at a party, I think it was. It was a long time. It was 2016. I have a bad memory, so.
And how about you? Did you grow up in Palmer?
Yes, mostly.
And where did you go to school?
Colony High.
And how old are you now?
21.
Okay. All right. And you said you had mutual friends also?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
You have to answer yes or no, so
Yes.
the record's made. And then after you met David, did you communicate with him on occasion?
Just occasionally.
All right.
It wasn't a lot of the time.
Okay. So you weren't super close friends,
No.
but you were friendly?
Yes.
Is that a good way to describe it?
Yes. Just friendly.
All right. Now, and when you communicated, it was just brief communications? What was the usual mode of communication?
Well, if we saw each other at parties, we'd just talk occasionally, and it was mostly like on Instagram or, Instagram.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention to November 13th, 2016, and I also want to turn your attention to an exhibit. Can you, while defense counsel's looking at it, can you, first of all, count the number of pages on that exhibit for me? So we have a record of how many pages it is.
4.
And then look at it. Look at each page, read it, and then I'll ask you whether you recognize it and what it is. Now, do you recognize what that is?
Yes.
I don't want to get into content yet, but generally, what does this exhibit contain?
A conversation between me and David on Instagram.
Okay. And was it on the day of November 13th, 2016?
Yes.
Was it during the evening hours?
Yes.
Without getting into the content, put this in content, like you were where when you had this conversation with David?
I'm pretty sure I was at home.
And you said it was an evening, right?
Yes.
And did you know where David was? Or
No.
not? Right.
No.
And were you, let me ask you this, were you having communications with various people during that evening? Or
No.
had you been sleeping? Or tell me
Um,
how this started, again, without getting into the content.
I'm pretty sure I was at home when it started, and then I fell asleep like halfway through the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell me, on November 13th, 2016, were you still going to school?
Yes.
All right, and you would have been what,
I was a super senior
at Colony?
at Colony.
All right, so therefore, were you supposed to have school the next day? Is that why you were home sleeping?
Yes.
Monday, your schedule, do you remember your schedule?
Yeah.
In the fall of that year?
Yeah.
Did
Yes.
you have school on Monday?
Yes.
Monday morning?
Yes.
Now, looking at this, is this a photo from your phone essentially?
Yes.
And does it show a number of screenshots?
Yes.
And does that represent the exact conversation you had with David on the evening of November 13th, 2016?
Yes.
And I would move for the admission of 227.
Any objection? So admitted.
Hold on to that.
What I'm gonna ask you to do, because you're not gonna be able to read, can you pop that mic out of the holder? It comes right out. And if you stand up, please. And take that yardstick, before we come around the scene, please. And take that yardstick, and the jury will get that paper exhibit eventually, but I just wanna go through it during your testimony. So, here, this is slide number 1 of 4, on the PowerPoint that is essentially, the same exhibit that you have up there, number 227. Is this your phone?
Yes.
And, how did it come about that this was obtained for the case? Did you contact the troopers, or did they contact you? What can you tell us about that?
They contacted me.
And so this is your phone, they came and took photos of your phone?
Yes.
All right. Now, tell us, what do we see here?
It's a conversation between me and David on Instagram. That's something I sent him, and then I don't know how it started, but I think I sent that to him first, and then he started talking to me, and then we went back and forth. We went back and forth for a little bit.
And this is just what, normal, in-person conversation, just kind of.
Yeah.
being, right?
Yes.
There's nothing serious about this conversation?
No.
Okay. But how did you know it was David? Let me ask that. And I know that the jurors can't, probably most of the jurors can't really see that, but how did you know it was David? This little, photo here?
Yeah, his photo's right there. That's his profile picture on Instagram, and that's his username. But it was a long time ago, so.
So that was the first page, right?
Mhm.
And then, I don't know, there's what, did you send that, or did he send that, or what?
I sent that one and he sent that one.
Okay, and again, this is just
Yeah.
fun around,
Yes.
light, joking around, okay. Nothing unusual about page 2. In terms of communications between young people, is there anything unusual about this representative sample of communications?
No.
Let's go on. Now, maybe tell us, like, read to us, so, since everybody can't, read to us what you said, what he said. So say, I said this, David said this, or however you want to say it, but make sure it's clear who's saying what.
I said me, that was a response to the picture he sent me, and then I said, how are you doing? He said, Gucci AFU, and I said, Gucci same. He said, that's Gucci.
Stop right there. What is that? Besides
It means like,
clothes or something.
it means like you're doing good. Yeah. And then I said, so Gucci, and then he said same, LOL, which means laughing out loud. And then I said, what you doing? And he said, smoking a J. And then I said, damn, wish I was too. And then he said, Snapchat. He asked for my Snapchat. And then I said, sure. And then I said, it's in my bio.
So I noticed that there, is this, what mode is this? Is this Facebook or Snapchat?
Instagram.
Instagram.
Instagram direct message.
And that's different than texting, right?
Yes.
That's an app, Instagram is an app?
Yes.
And was that like the way you communicate mostly with all your friends on Instagram?
He kind of started the Gucci thing. That wasn't me. That was him.
No, I mean the mode, communicating
Oh.
via Instagram. Is that the way you usually communicate with friends?
Sometimes it's like all the apps mostly, like Snapchat, Facebook. I use all of them.
Yeah, and is there any rhyme or reason, like which one you choose on a particular day? Is it depending who you're talking to?
Not really. I mean, most of my friends all have the same apps as I do.
So from this, I noticed there's not a lot of typing. They're very short
Yes.
communications.
Yes.
Right? Is that pretty typical of how you communicated back then?
Back then, yes, with him because I wasn't like that much of like we weren't that close, so it was mostly short messages between us.
And from this, the impression you got, did you get an impression he was doing fine?
Yeah.
Particularly
Yes. I thought it was just kind of normal.
nothing hair-raising about these communications?
No.
And then go ahead, who said what?
I said, he said, okie dokie. I said,
After you said the Snapchat's in your bio?
yes.
Okay.
And then I said, did you add me? And then I said, where you at? And then it says, please tell me you're okay and nothing bad is happening. I'm really worried, I said. And then I sent him a post.
So, during the conversation, the okie dokie, that was the last communication you got from David Grunwald?
Yes.
And do you remember about what time that was on the evening of November 13th?
Around 8, I think. I think I fell asleep right after that.
And then you said, did you add me, right?
Mm-hmm.
To his Snapchat?
Yes, I said, did you add me on Snapchat, basically.
Remember, like, was that right after he said okie dokie, or did you wait a while before you said that?
I don't remember.
Now, I do notice there's a, like, after did you add me, it flips over to a different date, is that correct?
Yes.
And that says November 14th, 2016 at 6:14 PM. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
So did you receive some information from other people that might be a problem?
I received information that he was missing. I think I saw on Facebook he was missing, and that's why I sent him the where you at message.
And did you ever get a response from David
No.
after where you at?
No.
And the next message is your message to
Yes.
And the third message on November 14th is your message too.
Yes.
And then the photo, that's something you put on there?
No, that is someone else's post
Oh,
that I sent to him.
to know that people are looking for him or concerned about him.
Yes.
And the response, okie dokie, around the 8-ish hour on November 13th, was that the last time that you communicated with David?
Yes, but I did get a message on Snapchat after that, but I was asleep and I didn't get it. Yes.
So, means you don't know what it was?
I don't know what it was, no.
Because they disappeared?
Yes. Yeah, Snapchat, if you don't open it or if you open it and you don't read it, it disappears. If you don't like save it or something, it disappears. And I was asleep when he sent me that message. I honestly don't remember what it said. I don't think I read it.
And just so we know that we're talking about the same David Grunwald.
Yes.
It's an unusual, name to an extent. It's not like Smith or Jones or whatever, but the photo, that's the David Grunwald you knew.
Yes.
And there, I'm not sure, there were some other photos,
But like this one, number 20, that's David Grunwald also.
Yes.
Cross-examination? You can just be seated. Okay. He'll be asked some more questions, okay?
How are you?
Hi.
Just a question about the timing. So the first communications occurred on the 13th at about 4:14 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And that was initiated by,
That was initiated by me, I'm pretty sure.
okay. And there was this little string, chit-chatting a little bit, sending a couple of photo screenshots or something that's saved back and forth, that whatever it meant or the humor you were sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes.
the Gucci, how about you, smoking a J, question about Snapchat, and then, sure, it's like in my bio, it's in my bio. And then you asked, did you add me, or he asked you?
I asked him, did you add me?
Right. So that string would have been around the time frame of 4:14.
Yes.
Because if you stop,
I
if you
think,
stop messaging after a certain period of time, not like an hour or hours, you won't see a new time and date. It'll show up after the conversation has stopped for a significant period of time. Right?
yes.
So between 4:14 p.m., when you had this first string of communications, and approximately, 6:15? It's very faint. 6:14, so exactly 2 hours. You posed the question, where are you at? And there was no longer any answers.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what his plans were that day or that afternoon?
No.
Based on, you just kind of felt like reaching out
Yeah.
randomly?
Yes.
Okay. And the parties that you would run into each other at, were they like school related or social groups related, or in people's homes or out in the community somewhere?
They were out in Sutton, mostly. And it was more like social groups, kind of like like different groups of friends come together and hang out and,
Maybe have a fire?
yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any redirect?
Just
times next to these communications with David, correct? He was referring to the next day, November 14.
Yes.
Okay. No, that's the time they looked at her phone.
No, this is the time and date of the start of the conversation. You just don't see it.
That's when it started.
Yeah.
but-
No.
No.
On the 13th at 4:14 p.m. And she tries to reach him again 2 hours later. He's already at home.
Okay. My question was like, where it says,
The last communication we had with David says, okey-dokey, there's the machine, the phone does not have a time next to that, right?
Right.
But to the best of your ability, you think that was around 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Yeah.
What exhibit number do you have? Is this what you're looking at?
I can't see
You can't
that.
see it, so. it's-
Because of this. Same material. Is this what you have?
Yes.
Okay, do you see this time on yours?
Right there? Yes.
Okay, so what time and date is that?
4:14 on November 13th.
What she's looking at,
The first page.
right?
Of which exhibit? Maybe he can have a mic.
Exhibit 227.
Okay. All right. I don't, but we can have a mic. If there's a mic he can go up with. We don't have the little guy.
I do, Judge, I just have to plug it in.
Okay, well,
It's on there, Mr. Provost is referring to the time, the date and the time before the conversations, when the conversation started with David, right? So we're looking at page 1, right?
Yes.
Where it says November 13th, right?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead and do your follow-up questions.
Well, I was done, Your Honor.
Oh.
I was redirected.
Okay, you had some follow-up clarification though,
Well, I
right?
just wanted to clarify that there is, that string of conversation, will start with the date and time it started. And you might put the phone down 10 minutes later, answer something, it won't show a new time or date until maybe an hour has passed, I'm not sure exactly how long has to pass. And then the next time there's a communication, the date and time of the new string will be
Yes.
right above it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so just, I think the jury deserves clarification. So the string of conversation that began on November 13th began at 4:15 or whatever that time is.
4:14 p.m.
4:14 p.m.
Yes.
And there is no other time listed for that string.
No, not until November 14th.
So that string continued until your testimony is you think it was about 8 o'clock when it ended,
Yes.
that string. Okay.
Well, hold on, sorry, you have,
That was the answer we just got from Mr. Kalachek, so I just think we just need to
let's clarify
clarify
that.
this.
Have another look at that. So we've established the string started at 4:14 in the afternoon, November 13th.
Yes.
And the last bit of that first string at 4:14 was, did you add me?
Yes.
Okay. And then what time and date do you see just below that? 2 hours later, right?
No,
November 13th.
that's November 14th.
My bad, that's right. So that is the next evening, 26 hours later. Okay, I understand, sorry.
It's okay. All right, ma'am, you can be excused. Agree for release her from subpoena? Do you agree to release her? Everybody's okay, don't need to hold her? You're free to go, ma'am. Okay, let's take our morning break. Who do you have next, Mr. Kalachek?
I think David Evans is out there.
Okay, all right. So let's take a 15-minute break and go from there.
with him.
Okay.
Except for 171 is the messages, the PowerPoints and messages that he had with
David Grunwald?
Grunwald.
Okay, and that would be concerning getting picked up and taken to the house and everything, right?
Right, and then
Okay.
the other ones are just photographs that, well, there's a couple that been admitted, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 3 that have been admitted, 4, 5, and then 4 more, and then there's a couple that have been invoiced and foundation for.
Okay.
That's about it.
All righty, well, let's bring in our jury then. Okay, please be seated, everybody. And Mr. Kalichak, can you call your next witness? We're on record.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in the case now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. And for the record, would you please state your full name and spell first and last?
Name is David Bailey Evans, David Evans.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kalichak.
Thank you, good morning. First of all, can you tell the jury how old you are,
I am 22 years old.
and where do you live?
I live in Wasilla, Alaska.
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there for about 5 years.
And where did you live before that?
I lived in Chugiak.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a parts puller at Connect Towing and Wrecking.
And how long have you worked there now?
In November, it'll be a year.
And what specifically do you do at that place of business?
I just pull parts off wrecked vehicles and get them for people who ordered them.
Now, and do you live on your own at this point, or with other
I live
people?
with 3 roommates.
You have a vehicle
Yes, sir.
that you drive to work?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention back to 2016, okay? And specifically around the November timeframe, as you know. And we have the calendar there if you need to refresh your memory about what days of the week certain dates were. Where did you live in November of 2016?
I lived with Eric Allmendinger.
And how did you know Eric Allmendinger?
Eric and I went to school together way back when, in
When-
high school
Where at?
at Colony.
In Colony, that's in the Palmer area.
Yes, sir.
And what grades were you in together, if you remember?
I believe I was a sophomore and Eric was a freshman.
And did you keep in what years were those? Do you remember?
I want to say it was 2014-15.
And did your friendship developed in school?
It was after Colony. It was more like Pathways when him and I started being friends.
Oh, and that's a different school?
Yes, sir.
And did both of you attend Valley Pathways?
Yes, sir.
And would you hang out in school at Valley Pathways?
We had a couple classes together.
And did you hang around outside of school too?
Yes, sir.
What type of things did you and Eric Allmendinger do?
We would play video games, smoke weed. That's about it.
Was that the primary activities?
Yeah, after school stuff.
And was this at his house or what?
Yes, sir.
And where did the weed come from?
It came from his dad.
And was this in the, what did you, in the downstairs or in the camper trailer or where did,
Downstairs.
downstairs?
You picking
Um, And you actually started living at the house, right?
Yes, sir.
When did you start to live at the Allmendinger house?
I want to say it was about the middle of September of 2016. Yeah, about September.
Now, why did you start living at Allmendinger's?
I had moved out of my parents' house and then just moved in with him.
Where did your parents live during this time?
They lived at the same place they're at now, 2301 North Biltmore Court
And I'm looking more for like.
in
how-
Wasilla.
In Wasilla.
Yeah.
And when you lived with the Allmendingers, did you still visit your parents on occasion?
Yes, sir.
So it was your choice to live at Allmendingers?
Yes, sir.
Or were you kicked out of your parents' home?
I didn't get kicked out. I just moved out.
And were you working at that time when you were living at Allmendingers, or were you going to school?
I was going to school.
Valley Pathways?
Yes, sir.
And Eric Allmendinger was going there too?
Yes, sir.
Where specifically did you live inside the home, or was it the camper, or what can you tell us about the living situation?
When I first moved in, his dad set me and Eric up in the trailer. And then after his brother moved out, he moved us downstairs.
And which brother, what's his name? If you remember,
I don't remember his name.
is he an older brother?
Yes, sir.
And was he there with somebody else, or was he?
He was there with his girlfriend.
And they were living in that bedroom downstairs first?
Yes, sir.
And then when they left, you guys moved down there?
Yes.
So is it fair to say that you and Eric Allmendinger were very close during 2016?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me ask you the jury has seen some photos of you and Eric Allmendinger, and some photos with you and Eric Allmendinger, wearing blue bandanas, wearing blue, flashing the C sign. What can you tell us about that? Why did you guys do that?
I'm not totally sure.
Well, how did it start?
Eric had told me about it, and then I just started doing it with him.
Was he the one that started doing it?
Yes, sir.
And do you know if it originated from what he read or the kind of music he was listening to? Do you know the origins of him starting to do these things?
I don't.
And why did you start doing it also?
To fit in with the crowd.
Okay. Now, were you, let's talk about you first. Were you intending on becoming a member of the Crips gang?
No, sir.
But Was it Eric Allmendinger's influence that made you wear those things?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you scared of him?
No.
Or was it just because, or what,
The
describe
stank.
for me, yeah, well, were you scared of him? That calls for a yes or no, so that's not leading. Why was it that you were doing the same kind of stuff that Eric Allmendinger was doing?
I don't know why. I just wanted to fit in.
When did you start doing it?
Around when I moved in.
Could you speak up just a little?
Yeah, we're not catching everything.
Yeah, maybe move it
Maybe
closer to
slide
you.
a little closer.
When did you stop doing it?
I stopped after everything went down.
Meaning after Eric got arrested on
Yes.
December 2nd,
Yes, sir.
2016?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, you stopped doing all those things?
Yes, sir.
Like stop cold turkey?
Yeah.
There wasn't any phasing out of it, you just stopped doing it?
Yes, sir.
Before I move into other people, let me talk a little bit more about the Allmendinger place, all right? So when do you figure you moved in there? August?
September.
September? First in the camper, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about this camper. Describe the campers as far as how you remembered it back in September of 2016.
It was just the basic camper. It had a lower bed and upper bed. It had a sink. Had a table and a couch. A bathroom. It's pretty much the same old trailer you see.
All right. When you and Eric Allmendinger lived there, when you first moved in, right? Was it connected to the power? Was the power connected?
Yes.
So, in other words, you know, the trailer has lights and such built into it. Were
Yeah.
those lights functioning?
Yes.
Was there a heater working in the trailer?
We had propane heat.
And was it from an independent heater, or was it from the heater that was built into the trailer?
From the heater that was built into the trailer.
How about water? Was water hooked up to it when you guys were living in there or not?
No.
How about the bathroom? Was it a functional bathroom or not?
No, we went inside to use the bathroom.
And when you say you were living in the trailer, does that mean you were sleeping there,
Yes.
hanging out there?
Yes.
And where did you specifically sleep?
I normally slept on the bottom bunk, and Eric slept on the couch in the camper.
The other people that were living there, you said at first it was his brother and his girlfriend were living in the downstairs, right?
Yes.
Was Rodney Allmendinger always living there?
Yes.
How about Eric Allmendinger's grandmother, Myler? Was she
Yes.
there also?
Yes.
And who was in charge of this household, from what you observed?
Myler.
Because why?
It was her house.
Now, when you were living with Eric Allmendinger, did you become aware that he was in possession of a handgun?
I was.
How did you learn about that?
He just pulled it out one day and showed it to me.
What kind of handgun was it?
I believe it was a Smith & Wesson 40 cal.
And did you ever shoot it?
Yes, sir.
And would you guys go to the range, or where was
We went to the woods and shot it.
around the house, or what?
No, it was like out in Sutton.
Did Eric Allmendinger have a vehicle?
No, I had purchased a vehicle.
And so you saw Eric Allmendinger shoot the 40 caliber Ruger?
Yes, sir.
And just let me show you, make sure we're talking about the same ones. State's exhibit number 3, of course, sits in the locked back position with the safety lock on it, but this is the gun you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right. And before November 13th, you definitely saw Eric Allmendinger shoot this gun?
Yes, sir.
And you had shot this gun too?
Yes, sir.
And where was this gun usually kept? In the
Um,
camper?
Yeah, he usually kept it in the camper.
Did Eric Allmendinger usually carry this gun?
It was usually in his backpack.
Okay, what kind of backpack did he have?
I can't remember what kind of backpack it was.
But the gun worked properly
Yes, sir.
and it shot well?
Yes, sir.
In other words, you can hit what you're shooting at
Yes, sir.
in terms of targets and whatnot?
Yes, sir.
Did Eric Allmendinger, when he carried it, did he have a holster or did he just carry it, tuck it into his pants?
He just tucked it into his pants.
All right, now, when would he carry this gun? Would he carry it on the property?
Yes.
Would he carry it off the property at times?
Yes.
Would he carry it to Valley Pathways?
No.
And why was that? Why didn't it?
That was the only place he didn't bring it.
But otherwise, he always had this gun on him?
Yes.
And did you find that to be unusual or not?
I didn't really ask a question where he got it. I just,
And were there some other guns on the Allmendinger property too?
I believe his dad had some too.
Okay, was it a semi-automatic or his dad's? Do you remember seeing his dad's revolver?
And I haven't seen his revolver.
So,
While I'm there, I grabbed some photos. Back to this stuff with the blue bandanas and, so the jury has a number of exhibits already. I'm just picking some out randomly, like 186. Photo of you and Eric, right?
Yes, sir.
And what, are you in front, Eric's in back?
Yes.
And the thing he has in his hand, is that his tablet?
Yes.
Was that his device at the time?
His grandma let him use it.
And was he using it as a phone essentially?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you see he's doing the C. What did you snap that photo as you were walking? Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What does the words like yay 100 underline mean?
It was just, yeah.
And you said that you really didn't have intentions of being a gang member, right?
Yes.
Well, and the other photo, like number 36, where it's Eric Allmendinger took a selfie of himself with the blue bandana doing the C. Did you see that a lot when you lived with him?
Yes, sir.
Now put this into context for everybody. When would he do this? Would he just randomly do this? Or would he do it when he was playing music or?
He'd mainly do it
From
taking
the,
pictures.
Sustained. You have to be careful with the yes or no's,
What-
Mr.
yeah.
Kalachek. I mean,
When did he do this and why?
He mainly did it taking pictures, and I'm not sure why he did it.
Have you seen many photos like this?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what this means? State's Exhibit number 29. Do you know what he meant when
I do
he
not.
posted that?
I do not.
And this is Eric Allmendinger.
Yes, sir.
Now, this one, State's Exhibit number 40. Who's in this photograph?
It is me, Bradley Renfro, and Eric Allmendinger.
And do you know who took this photograph or not?
I believe it was Eric.
Now, what are people doing in this photograph?
We were throwing up the C.
Facial expressions. What are people doing with their faces in this photograph?
We're like posing
And to appear as what?
to look like gang members.
And do you know who inserted the flying bill and the words cooling with my main homies in there?
And I do not know who put those.
Back to a little bit more on the gang stuff, State's Exhibit number 44. What can you tell us about this photograph? You're in it. When was this taken?
I don't completely remember when that was taken.
Was it on the same day as number 40 was taken?
I believe so.
Do you know who took number 44?
I believe it was Eric.
Do you know the location?
I know we were outside of the camper.
So how did you meet Bradley Renfro? Since we're on this photograph, how did you meet the defendant in this case?
Me and Bradley met in high school as well, back when he was a freshman and I was a sophomore
Which high school again?
at Colony.
And what was the extent of your friendship with Bradley Renfro?
We didn't talk for a little bit, and then we just started clicking more and started talking more and hanging out.
What was the extent of your friendship with him in 2016?
We were really close.
Were you closer with him or Eric Allmendinger?
Eric.
And then, can you explain when would you see, under what circumstances would you see Bradley Renfro, and what did you do together when you saw him?
I mainly saw him after school hours, and we just hang out and smoke.
Marijuana?
Yes, sir.
And now here, I mean, you're talking about activities you did alone with Bradley Renfro, right?
Yes, sir.
So smoking marijuana was the main thing?
Yes, sir.
But here, in State's Exhibit number 44, the three of you are together.
Yes, sir.
Were there times when the three of you hung out together?
Yes, sir.
A lot of times?
Yes, sir.
In 2016?
Yes, sir.
So who was the first one to start doing the gang stuff out of you three?
Eric.
Who was the second person that started doing the gang stuff?
I honestly don't know. I don't know when Bradley started doing it.
But did Bradley Renfro start doing the gang stuff too?
He did.
Right, and we have there's documentation of that, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, who were these photos sent to? Since you took part in the photo sessions, what was the purpose of having these photographs?
I think it just went on his story so everybody could see it.
On his what?
His-
Yeah.
His Snapchat story.
Story?
Yeah.
His meaning Eric's?
Yes.
Now, was anybody forced to participate in these photo sessions?
No.
Was there a lot of discussion before these photos were taken?
No, he just said, look at the camera.
With the clothing, it just became a habit, the blue bandanas, did that just become a habit?
Yeah.
Do you recognize the person in State's Exhibit number 41?
Devin Peterson.
And how did you know Devin Peterson?
Devin and I met in 4th hour study hall at Colony.
And what was your relationship with Devin Peterson?
Me and Devin were really good friends.
Well, let's do a compare and contrast. Who was your best friend out of all the people we talked about so far?
I want to say me and Devin were the closest out of everybody else.
Despite you living with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Why were you so close with Devin Peterson?
I don't know. It's just the way we hung out.
And what did you guys do when you hung out together?
The same thing. We smoked marijuana and played games.
Now, were you aware that Devin Peterson was also doing this gang stuff, as I say?
Yes, sir.
And you kind of, did he do it first, or did Eric Allmendinger do it first?
I am not sure about that one.
But he definitely did it too, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen this photograph?
Yes, sir.
Was this widely distributed amongst the group?
That one I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you think that this photograph was cool?
I mean, it's a picture.
Right.
What number is that, Mr. Kelly?
It's the one with Mr. Peterson with
Okay.
two guns across his belly. What, did you just see this as more of the same?
Yeah, it's just a picture.
Did you have conversations with Devin Peterson about gangs?
No.
But did you have conversation with Eric Allmendinger about gangs?
Yes, sir.
Were any of these people more serious than others about actually becoming gang members or taking it to the next level, so to speak?
Not that I know of. They just threw up the C.
Did you have conversations with Eric Allmendinger about what it took to become a Crip, actually?
Yes, sir.
And was it him saying what it took to become a Crip, or was it you?
That is, he told me that you had to either go to jail or kill someone to be in a Crip gang.
And was that before November 13th of 2016?
Yes, sir.
Now, showing you a bad photo, bad meaning it didn't come out good on this paper, 124. You ever see this photograph before?
I don't even know what it is.
And it's actually two guns in a waistband with the person's belly. And
Okay. Yes, I did see that one.
where did you see this photo?
I believe Eric took that photo.
And is that his belly?
That's his belt.
Yeah. Is
I
that-
recognize that belt.
do you
And
recognize any of the guns? despite
I
the-
recognize the gun too.
Which gun do you recognize?
The one on the right.
Is what?
That is the .40 caliber.
And what does this mean, 100? And what does I mean? Describe to us, what does all that stuff mean?
I don't really know what the emoji means. It's just keeping it 100.
What does that mean?
Keeping it real. And A is just like another word for hey.
Yeah. Now, the 100, does that mean what, 100%?
I couldn't tell you what the emoji means.
But you used that term before, right?
I don't think so.
No, the 100, you never used that before? So you didn't put these words on this photograph, you didn't superimpose
No,
the
sir.
words onto the photograph, right? But you've seen this on what? Was it Snapchatted to you, or?
He showed me that picture.
And did you have a phone or a device?
I did.
During this time?
I did.
Who is he when you say he showed me that?
Eric
photo?
Allmendinger.
All right. And then number 183, so this is more of the same, but who's in this photograph?
That is me and Eric Allmendinger.
Okay. And did you put these words on here or not?
I did not.
Do you remember when this photograph was taken?
I do not.
Is that your hand up here in the photograph? Or somebody else's?
That is not my hand.
All right, so third person. And what does this mean, straight cooling with my GC?
Chilling.
You
Straight.
don't know what the initials?
I don't
GC?
know what GC means.
Okay. How about other people? Dominic Johnson, did you get to know him?
Yes, sir.
Let me go back to Devin. Devin Peterson, do you know where he lived?
I want to say he lived in Big Lake with his mom.
So, and you already told the jury that you considered him to be your best friend. How were you able to associate frequently with him when he lived in the Meadow Lakes area and you lived in Wasilla?
He owned a vehicle. He had a 1500 Dodge Ram.
And then how about Dominic Johnson? Do you know him?
Yes, sir.
How did you get to know him?
Him and I went to school also when he was a freshman.
And was he a friend?
Yes, sir.
And where does he fall in this hierarchy of friends of yours? You said Devin's on top, right?
Yes, sir.
Eric's on second.
Yes, sir.
Who's next?
I'd say Bradley.
Bradley. And who's after Bradley?
Dominic.
All right. Am I missing any people from the group?
There was Austin, but he was just always there. And I don't really know what to think about Austin.
Did you know Austin Barrett?
Yes, sir.
What name did he go by at that point?
Andrew. He went by Andrew.
And did you hang out with him also in 2016?
I did.
And what type of activities did you, both of you, do?
Pretty much the same stuff. Smoke weed. Just hang out.
And Dominic Johnson, same thing, smoke weed and hang out?
Yes, sir.
So you weren't working, you were going to school, right?
Yes, sir.
Consistently?
I tried to make it every day.
And you say Austin was on the bottom as far as the hierarchy of your friends?
I wouldn't say the bottom.
Who was on the bottom?
No one was really on the bottom, and they were all my friends.
And is it fair to say that all the names I mentioned, all of them were friends?
Yes, sir.
And all of them hung out together?
Yes, sir.
And did everybody do this gang stuff,
Yes, sir.
including Austin,
Yes, sir.
including Dominic,
Yes, sir.
including Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
Who was anybody the boss of this group?
No, sir. Okay.
Austin Barrett was 19 in 2016, November. Was he the boss of this group?
No, because I was 19 also.
How old was Devin Peterson during that time?
I want to say he was 17, 18.
He was one of the older ones. Did anybody try to be the boss of the group?
No, sir.
Did you ever see anybody else forcing somebody to be in the group?
No, sir.
Was people's participation in group activities completely voluntary?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see anybody in fear of anybody else in this group?
No, sir.
Now, how many people had guns in this group besides Eric Allmendinger?
I want to say 2 or 3 people had guns.
Devin Peterson, obviously, there's a photo, right?
Yes, sir.
How about Austin?
I'm not sure if he did. I can't really remember.
You said 2 or 3, so Eric,
There was Eric, Devin. I think Devin had 2.
State's Exhibit number 1, another gun we have in evidence here. Did you ever see this gun before?
No, sir.
And I asked you about whether you continue to associate. November 13th, you know what the significance is of that date, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you said after December 2nd, you didn't hang out with Eric Allmendinger anymore, obviously?
Yeah, it was more like after the 13th, after I moved out.
Okay. How about the others? Did you continue to associate with the others or not?
No, I kind of just got out of there. And,
Why?
his grandma said I couldn't live there no more. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to my mom's house.
No, I know, but you're still a free agent, so you can still associate with Devin Peterson and Dominic Johnson, all the friends that you had. What was it about November 13th that made you stop associating with everybody that we're talking about here?
I just went home and went back home.
Was it about what happened on November 13th that made you
I actually did not know what was happening that night.
I guess what I'm getting at, was it November 13th that was that cutoff when you stopped associating with the people, or was it sometime between?
I think it was after the 2nd.
After the 2nd? Well, we know that Eric Allmendinger got arrested on the evening of the 2nd. And you weren't at his house when he got arrested, right?
No.
Okay. Where were you after you were kicked out on the 13th, sort of, were not allowed to stay there anymore? Where were you living it after that?
I went back to my mom's house for a little bit, and then I moved into the house I'm living at now.
So I should probably be more specific. After November 13th, did you associate with Devin Peterson?
I saw him a couple times. That's about it.
After November 13th, did you associate with Bradley Renfro?
I never really saw him again after that.
after November 13th, did you continue to associate with Dominic Johnson?
No, sir. I mean, we had talked, like on Messenger,
But not in person?
not in
How
person.
about Devin Peterson after November 13th?
We would talk, just not in person. I saw him in person a couple times at Walmart.
The fact that the police were focusing on them, was that a reason for your disassociation with them or not?
No.
No? So again, I'm going back to your decision. Was it a choice made by you?
Yes.
Why did you choose not to associate with them anymore?
Because I heard that David was missing, and I didn't know what happened, and I invited David over that night.
Were you gone by the time David came back that night?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's talk about that night. That night stands out in your memory,
Yes, sir.
and
On November 13th, I was hanging out with a friend, and then it was about 5 o'clock, and I hit David up asking for a ride back to the Allmendinger house.
what part of town were you initially hanging out in?
Over by Pioneer Pizza in Palmer. But David picked me up, dropped me off at Eric's house.
Well, let's start before that. From the communications, it appears that you wanted to go to Walmart for some reason, to hang out some more. And there were
Yes,
some
I-
initial discussions about David taking you to Walmart.
Yes, I was going to go talk to my buddy that works at Walmart McDonald's.
But that was a no-go, correct?
Right. I don't think we went to Walmart that night because he was in a hurry.
And then, did you ask David Grunwald for a ride?
Yes, sir.
And did you know what kind of vehicle he was driving?
He had his Ford Bronco.
How did you know David Grunwald?
Him and I went to school together also. And when me and my ex had broken up, he was there to talk to me about it.
Did you consider him a friend?
Yes, sir.
Now, was he part of that group in the photos that are sitting on the podium there with you?
No, sir.
So he didn't run, talk about circles, he didn't run in those circles?
No, sir.
But had he been over to Eric Allmendinger's house before November 13th?
Yes, sir.
So tell me which people he had intersected with before November 13th. Which people he had connections with before November 13th. You said obviously you knew him from school, right?
Yes, sir.
Colony days?
Yes.
Okay. And you considered him a friend?
Yes, sir.
And who introduced David Grunwald to Eric Allmendinger?
They also knew each other from going to school.
Now, before November 13th, did you personally observe David Grunwald hang out with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Did you observe him hang out with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you ever observe him interact with Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the Allmendinger house?
Yes, sir.
So Bradley Renfro knew David Grunwald?
Yes, sir.
And was it the same type of activity, hanging out, right?
Yes, sir.
Playing video games?
Yes, sir. And
Smoking
smoking.
marijuana?
Yep.
How many times did this defendant hang around with David Grunwald?
I believe it was 2 or 3 times.
At Eric Allmendinger's?
Yes, sir.
How about, did you ever see David Grunwald hang out with Devin Peterson?
No, sir.
Austin Barrett?
No, sir.
Dominic Johnson?
Maybe once
At
school
school?
because they went to school together also.
Like this is a couple of years ago is what we're talking?
This was a long time ago.
Colony Middle or?
No, Colony High.
Colony High? All right. But not in the hanging out, having fun?
Just seeing each other in the hall type thing.
So the David Grunwald, the the overlap between him and Johnson was strictly from the school days.
Yes.
But with Renfro is from the having fun days at Eric Allmendinger's camper house.
Yes, sir.
All right, now let's get back to November 13th. You had a phone on that day,
Yes, sir.
and you already mentioned you asked David Grunwald for a ride, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to turn your attention to a couple of exhibits. Let me show you State's proposed exhibit number 19 first. Do you recognize this vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Was that David's vehicle?
It was.
And is that the vehicle he picked you up at?
It is.
In?
It is.
And what was the location where he picked you up?
Pioneer Pizza.
And which street is that on?
It's on Palmer West Hill Highway.
And you were getting a ride to which location?
The SD house.
I would move for the admission of number 19.
So admitted. What number is that?
Now I'm turning your attention to State's proposed exhibit number 171. Once you count the pages for me out loud, so we know how many pages this exhibit consists of.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
All right, and now look at each page, just to yourself, before I ask you to tell me what it is. So just kind of flip through it, and you've seen this before, right?
Yes, sir.
And we'll go through it line by line, but just, I want to make sure that you know what it is first. Okay, all right. Tell us what 171 is.
171.
This exhibit.
This is the conversation David and I had about picking me up.
State moves for the admission of number 171.
Any objection? So admitted.
times associated with this, obviously, but this came off of, David's Facebook, but you recognize the words on there, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, when the first line, do you recognize, who made the first statement?
Yes, sir.
And was that you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to clarify, so the term you use, you guys didn't use that in a racial or derogatory way, is that correct?
Yes.
Was that just used to call friends, essentially?
Yes.
Okay, now, did this have something to do with the gang part, or?
No.
What?
No.
That just started?
Yes.
So, from you to David, right, is the first line?
Yes.
And then, so, David responded, so essentially the black, when you have the name in black, that means the person says the things in black, and you have the name in red, it means the person says the thing in red, right?
Yes.
So, you said, what's up, and what did David respond?
He said, chillin' with Toria.
Okay, he also asked a follow-up question, right?
Yeah, he asked you.
And what did you say?
I asked who Toria was.
Right, and he explained who Toria was?
It was his girlfriend.
And what did you ask him after that?
Where you at, though?
And then what did he say?
He said, near Walmart. You need a ride to Ark still.
Now, focusing on that, it sounds like perhaps you had some conversations earlier with him? Or did you have some conversations earlier with him?
Yes.
And were they phone, was it a call, what type of mechanism was used to communicate with Dave earlier?
I think it was the same, a message.
Just earlier in the day?
Yes.
How much earlier do you remember?
I don't remember.
Now, let's go down. So, what was your response? Told him where you were at?
Yeah, I told him I'm by Three Bears. I'm trying to go chill with my Knicks still.
And the Three Bears, meaning the Three Bears at which location?
Palmer Wasilla Highway.
Which intersection of Palmer Still and what?
It's by Trunk.
All right, let me move on to the, now, tell us how the rest of the conversation went. And this is where the Walmart book comes in.
Yeah, I told him I needed to get to Walmart to go hang out with my buddy Brian that lived over there. And then he said he only gives one-way rides, so I was like, all right, so just take me to Eric's.
And that pretty much summarizes it.
Yeah,
All right, now, why did you want to go to Eric's?
because that's where I was living.
But you had not been there for a few weeks.
I hadn't been there for a week.
And did you, why did you leave Eric's house?
Eric and I had gotten in a fight, and I wanted to give him some time to cool down.
Now, did Rodney Allmendinger have some house rules that you had to abide by certain things if you continued to live there?
Yes.
What were the rules?
It's either you go to school or you get a job.
And what was the choice that you were making at the time?
I chose to go to school.
Did you elect to leave the week before, as you described?
Can you repeat that?
Was it your choice to leave when you said you left to give Eric some space? Was that your choice?
Yes.
Did you think or not that you would get in trouble over it?
I didn't think I'd get in trouble over it.
So that's why you wanted to go back to Eric's. Were you
I was going back to make it to school the next morning.
Did it appear to you from the last text that David Grunwald sent to you that he was amenable to give you a ride to Eric Allmendinger?
What was that? That he was.
Last text, or last response, did it seem to you like he was gonna give you a ride?
I don't understand your question.
You said, the discussion, what time would you be dropping off at Eric's? David said whenever. Was it your understanding from these texts that you will be taking me to Eric's?
Yes.
You get back in touch with David, correct?
Yes.
There's more conversation about getting a ride to Eric. Did you try to ask him again to take you to Walmart?
I did.
Did he agree to take you to Walmart?
He did not.
Anything else about this slide you need to talk about?
It was just me asking if I could get a ride to Walmart, and he said no. So I said, all right, yeah, you can just take me to Eric's.
And then, this gets a little bit later in time, is that right?
What was that?
It's getting later now when these conversations are taking place, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. And eventually, did you and David connect up at a certain location?
We did.
Now, going all the way to the bottom, it seems like was there a phone call?
There was.
And what was the phone call about?
Him telling me that he's parked at Pioneer Pizza.
And then how about the bottom here? Is that the part that's highlighted, 440, 543? Is that the time that he picked you up?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Have a seat, please.
What happened after David pulled into the parking lot?
I had asked him what he was driving. He said the blue Bronco. So I walked up and I got in and we took off.
Where did you go to?
He had Victoria with him, so we dropped her off at her dad's house or her mom's house. I'm not sure which one it was. But then he dropped me off at Eric's after that.
Were you familiar with that Bronco?
Yes,
Was it driving fine?
it
Um,
was.
Where were you sitting in the Bronco?
I was sitting in the rear seat.
Did you know Victoria at all or not?
I didn't know her. I knew of her.
Did you know where her mother lived or not?
Yes. After he dropped her off.
Okay, but not before the 13th of November.
Right.
And what happened when he stopped at Mrs. McKilkey's house?
He walked her inside and he came back out and then he dropped me off at Eric's.
Did he go inside Eric's
did.
house? Or?
Oh, not Eric's house. He just dropped me off and then he left.
Okay. Literally, he didn't get out of his car?
No, sir.
Did you have any stuff with you?
I had my backpack full of clothes.
And was that the stuff you took from, or was that new stuff you were bringing back to?
That was the stuff I was bringing back from the week.
Now, before I forget, I didn't show you a backpack yet, right? But let me show you a backpack and see if you recognize it. And I'm not trying to suggest that it belongs to anybody, but have you seen this backpack before, State's Exhibit number 4 or not?
No,
Did Eric have a backpack? I think you talked about it.
he did.
Was this Eric's backpack or not?
No.
What kind of backpack did Eric
I don't remember the name of it, but it was not a North Face.
have? Okay. Was it a different color, too?
It didn't have so much red on it, but it was the same color, gray.
All right, but you're positive that this was not Eric's backpack at the time?
That was not his backpack.
And did he have one backpack consistently
He
in
had one.
2016 that he always used?
He had one backpack.
Do you know whose backpack this was? Have you ever seen this before?
I've never seen that backpack.
You mentioned earlier in your testimony that you had suggested that David Grunwald come back and hang out with you at Allmendinger's, right?
Yes, sir.
When did that suggestion take place?
I asked him about it when I got in the Bronco. I asked him if he wanted to come back over and hang out when he was done with Victoria.
And what was the response?
He said that he'll let me know.
And did he let you know eventually or not?
He did not.
So you never saw him come to Allmendinger's?
No, sir. Not after he dropped me off.
But you had made that suggestion, right?
Yes.
And why did you make that suggestion? What were you envisioning him and you doing at Eric Allmendinger's house?
Just hanging out, doing our normal thing.
What happened when you came into the house?
What was that?
What happened when you came into the Allmendinger house?
I talked to Rodney about living here, and he said that I had to talk to Myler. So that's when I put my stuff down, and me and Eric went upstairs and talked to Myler.
And how long does it take to get, so we have a record here of when you were picked up by David Grunwald. How long does it take to drive from Pioneer Pizza to Eric Allmendinger's house?
I want to say it's a good 15-minute drive.
Who was home when you got to Allmendinger's house?
It was Eric, Rodney, and Myler.
What was Eric Allmendinger doing?
I think it was in his room, actually.
Doing what?
I'm not sure. Yeah, we went straight to his room, and then him and I started talking
About what?
about what I did during the week when I was gone, and I told him I was just at my buddy's house.
Then what happened?
Then Rodney came in and said that I should go talk to Grandma about living here still. So that's when Eric and I went upstairs and talked to his grandma.
Now, do you remember Christian Ward being there also?
Yes, sir.
The neighbor?
Yes, sir.
Did you know Christian from before?
I did. I met him a couple times in the trailer.
Was Rodney being loud with you?
Not with me. He was being loud with Eric.
Because?
Eric was backing me up, and Rodney was saying I can't live there. So Eric was getting angry with his dad and backing me up.
And there was an argument between the two of them?
Yes, sir.
And did you go and talk to Myler?
I did. After Rodney and Eric had their conversation, that's when Eric and I went up and talked to Myler.
How'd that go?
She said I couldn't live there.
Was there much debate about that, or did she just say, right?
She said I can't live there no more, but I can stay the night to make it to school tomorrow, the next day.
Uh-huh.
But I told Rodney that I was going to start packing and go to my mom's house.
Why didn't you take the grandmother up on her suggestion that you stay and go to Valley Pathways the next morning?
I had my mom take me to school the next day.
No, I know that, but why did you elect not to stay there that night?
She said I couldn't stay there, so I was like,
No,
all
but she
right,
said you could stay the night.
right. But I just didn't stay the night.
What did you do before you left?
Before I left
Yeah,
the SD house,
right.
I took a shower downstairs, and then I hit my brother up and asked him if he could pick me up.
Now, was there any marijuana smoking downstairs during any of this, or not?
Yes, sir.
Like when? Before Rodney came?
It was before my shower.
And who was smoking the marijuana?
It was me and Eric.
And how much marijuana was consumed?
I want to say 2 or 3 bowls.
Was there any gunplay during that time?
I don't think so.
Or any rap music, for example, during that time?
No.
2 or 3 bowls, and what does that usually result in? A pretty good high?
Yeah.
And so you figure both of you were high?
Yes, sir.
And you went take a shower, right?
Yes.
Had it been a while since you had a shower?
Yes.
How long was the shower? How long did the shower take at Allmendinger's house?
Well, it had been a week since I showered, so it was about 45 minutes.
Do you know what Eric Allmendinger was doing?
I don't.
Had Christian Ward left before you got in the shower?
Christian wasn't there
For?
that night.
Well, he was there originally when you got dropped off, right?
No.
You don't remember him being there?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, it was Eric, Rodney, and Myler, and myself.
Okay. You don't remember seeing him at all?
No, sir.
Is it possible he was downstairs when you were conversing with Rodney and Myler?
It could be a possibility. I didn't see him.
Right. But are we assuming that you were not high when you got there, right?
No.
But you got high with Eric after you got there, but before the shower?
Yes,
right?
sir.
And you don't know what, obviously, when you're in the shower, you don't know what's going on in the
Right.
house,
Right.
right? Before you got in the shower, did you tell Eric Allmendinger that you were leaving that day?
I told him that I was going to hit my brother up and go to my parents' house.
And what's your brother's name?
Christopher Peterson.
And before you went into the shower, were you aware that any other people were on the Allmendinger property?
I did not. I thought it was just me and Eric and Myler and Rodney.
Did you have any heads up from anybody
About
that Bradley Renfro, Austin Barrett, and Dominic Johnson were going to be there?
I did not.
When you invited David Grunwald to come back, did you have any evil or criminal intent when
No.
you gave him that invite?
No.
Again, why did you invite him to that?
I invited him over to play games and smoke some weed.
And you had seen him there before?
Yes.
When you had seen him there before, was there anything weird or unusual that happened during those prior instances?
No, everything went great.
Okay. Did you feel that by inviting him, you would put him in any kind of danger?
I did not feel that at the time.
And then, did you see Austin Barrett on the property before your brother, Christopher Peterson, right, is your brother?
Yes.
Before he picked you up?
I did not see anybody.
Did you see Dominic Johnson there?
No, sir.
Did you see Austin Barrett there?
No, sir.
Okay. Bradley Renfro, I think
No,
I
sir.
remember that. Did you see Eric Allmendinger communicating with any of those guys?
No.
On his tablet?
No.
Did you see him messing with his using his tablet?
Yes.
Did you know who he was talking to?
I did not.
Did you ask him?
Mm-mm. Because it wasn't my business. That was his tablet. And
Now, did you think about texting or communicating with David Grunwald saying plans have changed, I'm out of here?
I did not.
And was there a reason why you didn't?
I had just forgotten that I asked him to come back over because I was dealing with Myler. And
Now, I know you said you were high, but you were still able to get a hold of your brother, right?
yes.
And was that by phone?
Yes.
And he came and got you?
Yes, sir.
And you were able to pack your stuff up, right?
I packed up my backpack full of fresh clothes, and that's all I took.
Was there some of your stuff still left at the Allmendinger home?
Yes.
And then, did Christopher have anybody with him when he picked you up or not?
No, it was just him.
What type of vehicle did he pick you up in?
It was his Volkswagen Golf.
And about what time do you figure he picked you up?
9:30. I want to say.
Was Eric out of the bedroom when you got out of the shower?
Eric wasn't in the bedroom when I got out.
Did you know where he was?
I did not.
Did you go look around for him?
No, I did not. I just packed my things.
Did you look around the property to see
Mm-mm.
who was there, where Eric was?
No, I was just trying to get my stuff together, and
So you go in for this, you're getting high with Eric, then you go in for this long shower, you get out, he's gone, right?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know where he's at,
no, sir.
and he didn't communicate to you where he's at.
Mm-mm.
And there are no more communications between you and David Grunwald.
No,
Did you see David's Bronco there when you came out of the house?
I didn't. It was dark.
But is there a light out? Do they have one of those overhead lights on a pole or whatnot? People have. Sometimes they have them in the garages or something.
No, that light wasn't on.
But did you see?
The light that was outside the downstairs back door was on.
No, but Christopher picked you up at the front of the house, right?
Yes.
Now, there were some.
It was the side closest to the. It was
Well, he drove on Esty, right?
yes, and then he pulled furthest left. He pulled in furthest left of the driveway.
Now, if David Grunwald's Bronco was there, would you have noticed it?
Yes,
But was it there?
I did not see it.
Did you see any other vehicles or not?
Just Myler and Rodney's vehicles, and my brother's.
And Eric Allmendinger did he have a vehicle?
No, sir.
How about Austin Barrett? Did he have wheels?
No, sir.
How about Dominic Johnson?
No, sir.
So then, where did Christopher take you?
He picked me up, and then we went to my mom's house on Biltmore Court.
And did you go to school the next day or not?
I did not.
Now, when did you first hear that something went wrong on November 13th?
It was, I think it was the Thursday after, from Caitlin Kelly. She had told me that David was missing, and I told her, well, let's go look then.
Now, without getting into content, now, did that surprise you?
It actually did, because I didn't think he would go missing.
And what did you help look for him?
I did.
Now, you got texts or messages from Victoria, right?
I did.
And did you respond to her messages?
I can't remember.
Remember her messages saying whether you were with David?
Yeah, I think she was asking where he went.
Yeah. And we already have those, but do you remember communicating with her?
Yes.
To try to help find David?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you make some efforts in the days after November 13th to help find David?
I did.
Like what type of efforts did you make?
With Caitlin, her and I went on this search and rescue search party that they had, and we went looking, and we didn't find anything.
Anytime after November 13th, without getting into content, did you ever have any discussions with Eric Allmendinger about what happened on November 13th?
I did not.
Anytime after November 13th, did you have conversations with Bradley Renfro about what had happened on November 13th?
I did not.
Anytime after November 13th, did you have conversations with Austin Barrett about what happened
I did not.
on November 13th? Any kind of conversations. I'm talking about, social media.
I did ask Eric how he was doing.
That's about it.
That's about it.
I'm talking about substantive conversations where somebody might have described the events of November 13th to you.
No.
Okay. And then Dominic, same thing for Dominic Johnson. In any way, shape, or form, did you have any conversations with him about what happened on November 13th after November 13th?
No.
How about Devin Peterson?
No.
Now, this business about Eric Allmendinger tell you that you had to go to jail or kill somebody to be a Crip, how many days or weeks before November 13th was that conversation?
I think he told me around when I moved in. I don't exactly remember when he told me that.
But it was after you had moved in to the,
Yes, into the SD house.
now, did you think he was actually gonna kill somebody or go to prison?
I did not think he was gonna.
And you, as you sit here today under oath, swear that you had nothing to do with what happened to David?
Yes, sir. I had nothing to do with it.
Thank you.
Mr. Provost, did you want to recess? And then you can get ready. Okay, it's about 5 to 12, so we'll take our afternoon break, come back, and go forward with cross-examination. Ready for cross-examination? You may proceed.
Morning, Mr. Evans.
Good morning.
So I made a few notes when I was listening to your direct testimony. I believe it started out with, well, my notes do anyways, about the crypt stuff. And tell me a little bit more. You testified that you weren't really into it, but you kind of emulated it because Eric started getting into it pretty heavily, apparently. Is that
Yes, sir.
so? What's behind? You didn't take it seriously, I take it.
Yes, sir.
But what is the, when you think back, you're 21 now, you're 18 then, and you and Austin are the two oldest ones, right?
Yes, sir.
So you're a couple of years older than Bradley, right?
Yes, sir.
What is, by emulating it, what do you mean by that? Emulating the blue colors.
What do you mean by emulating it?
Taking on, doing, wearing blue yourself.
It was just a color.
But did
Cut.
it have anything to do with Eric wearing blue?
No. We
You
just,
testified you did try to fit in with the group.
yes, sir.
Would you have felt like you weren't fitting in if you didn't wear blue?
Yes, sir.
Why is that? For
Um,
example, was it an unspoken code that if you wanted to hang out with Eric or at his house, you needed to dress for it, or?
No. I'm not really sure.
When you weren't hanging around Eric or Devin or Dominic, you say you didn't know that well,
Right.
and Bradley, when you weren't hanging out with them, did you still tend to wear blue?
Yeah, because it was just a blue hoodie that I had.
Or you already had a blue hoodie?
Mm,
Did you wear a bandana?
I did.
Is that something you got to fit in as well?
Yes, sir.
What was the, I'm trying to, what is the draw or the feeling that you had at that time to dress similarly?
I don't really know why I wore them. Just to fit in.
And, of course, Eric is in your ear about Crips and his research, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you, was that any motivation to be wearing blue, or just to be able to hang out and?
Just to be able to hang out.
And Do you think you would have felt like you didn't fit, or you were not welcome if you didn't?
Yes, sir.
So, but you also testified that Eric fancied himself to be, a Crip wannabe,
Yes, sir.
but you didn't see the same enthusiasm with Bradley Renfro.
No, sir.
Did he ever talk about the kinds of things Eric talked about?
No, sir. The only thing he would do is hold up the C
In those,
and wear blue.
in those snap photos?
Yes, sir.
And I'll kind of use an analogy. I mean, I can't speak for Mr. Kalchek, but I don't usually wear a suit. It's usually for court. So when I go to court, I'm putting on a suit. The colors don't matter, but it's not what I would normally wear. So you wore some blue in the bandana when you were hanging out with Eric. What about the rest of your life when you weren't visiting with Eric? Would you just wear whatever you pulled out of the drawer or the closet?
Yes, sir.
So it was a conscious, effort instead of like, whether, you could say any event or hobby that you would go to, game or whatever. I just gave you an example, my day job. But was it a conscious thing that, I'm going to be going hang out and chill with these guys, so I'll wear my blue?
Sir.
Is that true?
Yes, sir.
But you had no interest in the criminal mindset of, as we know, of Crip gangs and,
Correct.
inner cities and whatnot.
Correct.
Do you know of any Crip gangs alive and well in Alaska?
I do not.
So you also made, I'm curious about a statement you made. You said you were buddies with Dominic Johnson, and because at the time, or you became buddies with Dominic Johnson, because at the time you didn't like Eric for a period of time for some reason. Do you remember saying that earlier today?
You mean when Eric and I first met? Because that's when I didn't like him.
Oh, I see, when you first met.
When Eric and I first met, I didn't like him.
Why was that?
He was always making fun of me some way. But we got past that.
Did he continue to poke at you like that?
He did
after
not.
you became friends?
He did not.
And what made you think or believe or perceive that Eric learned the, quote, gang stuff from Devin Peterson? What gave you that impression, or do you have concrete knowledge?
I'm not sure.
So you met, seems like you recall first running into or meeting Bradley Renfro at Colony High,
Yes, sir.
and you were a sophomore.
Sophomore.
And then you went to the academy after that year at Colony High, after your sophomore year,
Yes, sir.
and you finished it and graduated.
I did.
Was that for credit recovery, or,
Yes.
and you did it voluntarily, or did you kind of get
Um,
pressured by it?
Kind of got in trouble with my parents as well, so they kind of sent me.
Good on you. Do you think that, ask you a little bit more about that, not so much about the program, very familiar with the program, but Did you resent your parents at first for sending you off for 6 months like that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's not something you wanted to do,
Correct.
but.
But once I got there, I realized that is what I wanted to do.
Right. How long did it take?
I was there for 6 months.
Okay. So it would seem that your parents were concerned about a path you were on, or associations you were having, or kind of like flailing in school, missing some school, maybe being disrespectful at home,
Yes, sir.
things like that. Have you ever thought about, so that's one trajectory that you were on at the time. Parents called you out and said, enough's enough, we want you to go to the academy.
Yes, sir. That and my other 2 cousins were going too, and they kind of talked me into it.
And have you ever thought about, since you graduated, maybe even since David Grunwald's disappearance and murder, have you ever thought about feeling grateful to your parents for that intervention, that you could be on a different path than the path you're on today?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, what if you didn't go to the academy? What would your life look like right now, do you think?
I honestly don't know. Because the academy did teach me a lot of stuff. It taught me how to respect my parents, and before I went, I did not. And then after I graduated, I just started respecting my parents more.
Don't you think that's a big deal?
Yes.
Did your parents recognize that and acknowledge that?
I'd hope so.
I mean, to your face, they ever say,
Do
sure,
they-
glad we sent you to the academy, or you're doing great since you got back, or anything like that?
No, they know I've been working a lot, though. So they're happy for that I'm making money and trying to make a living.
Do you still live at home,
No.
living on your own? So when you got out of the academy, did you live at home for a while and then moved out on your own, or did you go straight into independent living?
I moved back in after I graduated for like a month. And then that's when me and my cousins got a little cabin to ourselves. And that's pretty much when I moved back out.
Do you think you would have been able to transition that quickly into independent living if you hadn't gone to the academy?
No.
So, you recognized anyways Bradley from Colony High. Did you guys, I mean, passing in the hall, I mean, or, you know, any extra sports or anything like that? Just common classes?
I believe we had gym together.
And at that point, were you guys becoming good friends, or you're just, you know, buddy from school?
I'm just a buddy from school. And yeah, we would hang out some days after school.
That's when, you know, after school you might hang out and go smoke out.
Yeah.
Then how did you, you know, was during that period of time Eric would tease you or bully you?
Yes, sir.
And then you guys became closer in 2016. How did that come about?
We just started hanging out a lot more and getting to know each other more. And things just sparked from there.
In hindsight, do you think that one of the common denominators for hanging out more, which would lead to getting to know each other a little better, was getting together to smoke out?
Yes, sir.
Kind of a common denominator, you think?
Yes, sir.
You made a statement, but and then kind of clarified significance or lack of significance it was. And that statement was, Bradley started doing this gang stuff.
He did start doing it a little bit.
Was that before or after you started?
I want to say it was after.
Did you know that Bradley considered you a good friend at the time?
I did.
Do you think it's possible to, not only be able to hang out and smoke out with Eric, but that as he knew you had gone to the academy and graduated too, right?
Eric or Bradley?
Bradley.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that he kind of looked up to you as because you were older and
I never actually really thought about that.
you ever get the sense, just like you had the sense, I think it was, you said that Devin would look after you. Or you were, that was your connection with Devin, is he was nice to you and
Yeah, we were good friends.
looked after you, I think I saw in your previous testimony. Did you recognize that Bradley kind of saw the same in you?
I did.
Do you think that might have had that something to do too with starting to wear a little bit of blue and
Yeah, lay a foundation.
so your testimony has been that you knew Bradley from school and run into each other, maybe gym class or in the halls, right? And
Yes,
then
sir.
you morphed into getting together once in a while after school and smoking out, probably whether you or he had some available when it was available. And then Eric, building these relationships as I understood him, what you said. First you didn't like Eric because he was poking at you, but once you started hanging out with him more and getting to know him a little better, that stopped, and became good friends with Eric. And then you have Bradley. Was he kind of the last one to kind of fall into hanging out?
It was either him or Dominic that was the last into the group. I can't remember which one it was.
But being older, being his friend, and him being homeless fairly recently, do you think that, what impact do you think, would he model or mimic or want to be included or accepted by you? And when you say he started doing gang stuff, do you think that was one of the factors that may have been a subconscious? Have you ever thought about it?
Same objection, Judge, speculation as to what was in the defendant's mind when he was flashing the scene.
I didn't mean to say that, so I withdraw that.
Okay.
I mean, when you made the statement, Bradley started doing the gang stuff, what were you thinking? I mean, to have said that, somehow you have this recollection. Was it a concern? Was it just more of, we all started, gradually wearing bandanas when we were together, or blue shirts, or?
Yes, sir.
Did Devin always remain your best friend?
He did not. We kind of fell off a little bit.
What do you think caused that?
All this.
Oh, it was after David's disappearance and murder?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when David was doing his talking to you, what it was to be a crypt, that you have to go to jail or kill somebody.
Yes, sir.
At that time, did you take him seriously?
I did not.
And did you ask him, well, where do you get that information?
I did not.
Do you think he was trying to impress you? Do you think he was halfway joking with you? What was, when somebody says, oh yeah, I identify with Crip, I do C signs, I wear blue, But to be a real Crip, you gotta go to jail or kill somebody.
That is what he told me.
What did you think about that at the time?
I was kind of terrified.
Kind
Because
of terrified.
maybe he could have killed me or something. I don't
At
know.
that time or after you heard about David?
At that time,
And did you say anything, did you express any of that concern to him?
I did not.
Were you worried about Bradley? Let me ask you this. Back up. Was he with you when Eric was saying these things?
No.
Did you ever hear Bradley Renfro talk in that manner? What it means to be a real Crip?
No, sir.
Did you see him using C signs anywhere else except when in these photos, these group photos that somebody would snap?
No, sir.
When you're partying? Not at school, not in the community, not anywhere else, just when hanging out?
No, sir. Just when we're hanging out.
So, is that, at grand jury, you testified that Bradley got dragged into it, wasn't really associated with it all. Is that similar to what you just said?
Yes, sir.
Has that changed at all in almost 3 years, that opinion? You still feel that way?
Object as to relevance of people's opinions. That's for the
Well,
jury to decide.
I'll ask him if, you can rephrase it, but you can ask him, does he still have that statement? So,
Question,
Has your-
dragged into murder, dragged into
I'll rephrase.
kidnapping, dragged
Okay.
into gang stuff.
that's fine, you can break it down, go ahead.
I started with one foundational question, I'll follow up with another one. At grand jury, let me know if this refreshes your recollection, I'll bring up the transcript too. You recall stating something along the lines of Bradley was dragged into this whole gang thing, he wasn't really associated with it at all. You remember that?
I do not.
Do you have a copy of the transcript?
Do you have a page for me to follow along? so that
Sure.
it's the right-
You bet. I haven't marked this up with yellow, but it's gonna be 90.
Mr. Provost, that's because it's a transcript.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not grand.
Well, that's why I'm saying if Mr. Provost is gonna impeach or refresh, he's gotta be specific with his prior trial testimony, grand jury testimony.
Oh, I agree, so,
You can't just say, well, I remember that you said this.
well, give him
Actually, give the witness, afford the witness stuff.
give him a chance to see
Yeah.
what he can find.
You know, I got two transcripts here, of course, and
But what,
so
do you
one
have-
is grand jury and the other is almost a year ago.
Okay, so do you have you identified where it's at then?
Yeah, I'm. All right, so let me see if I can.
If you need a second to locate it, we
I
can
do.
go off record, that's fair enough, so, what the document is, okay?
So this was at grand jury, I think it was December, the first one, December 12, 2016.
And what page number?
Page 108.
Okay. Do you have that, access to that, Mr. Kalicek?
I'm waiting to hear the question. If it's asking for this witness's opinion about whether Bradley Renfro was dragged into the murder or kidnapping or against them November 13th, that's sheer speculation. And in
Well,
any case-
No, that's That's not where I was going, Your Honor.
That's why I need to hear the question.
Well, let's hear what the statement he made at grand jury.
Well,
So,
I don't want the jury to hear any statements he made at grand jury unless they're relevant, so the question.
well,
So any
okay,
opinion
okay,
about-
come forward, okay?
Well, this can be done in open court too.
Well, and give it the context of what it is, so, go ahead. You may.
So this is from the grand.
Gotta speak a little louder, I don't think they're getting you.
This is from the grand jury back in December, mid-December 2016, when you first were brought in to testify. And I'll just let you read this 2/3 of the page for context. So I'm going to be really clear, Mr. Evans. This page, of course, is taken out of a transcript from grand jury. The discussion was about Crips, and my question has nothing to do with the disappearance or murder of David Grunwald. This goes months before, when you were getting to know Bradley, and were seeing Eric start doing the Crip stuff, as it's been called, and you were being asked about Bradley Renfro. What was, is he into this stuff too, basically? So my question had been, do you recall now the statement you made in grand jury that this was after meeting him at Colony High School, his association or hooking up, becoming friends with Allmendinger and then Johnson after you had,
What was that?
this was, you had already become friends with Eric, who testified, and then Bradley came into the picture later. Either him or Dominic or both were the last to become associated as friends to come and hang out. So the question is, was he, the questions that I was asking you after this interruption, just to bring it back to where we were, would he wear the blue bandana outside of us, getting together to hang out? Did you see him in the community or anywhere else wearing blue? And you had testified no. I only saw him wearing it when we all got together at a party. And then I asked you if you recall making a statement at grand jury. Did you recall making the statement that he was kind of dragged into it?
Yes, sir.
That he wasn't really associated with all of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That does refresh your memory then?
Yes, sir.
Now, you explain why you considered yourself a friend of David Grunwald. You had met him at school, right?
Yes, sir.
And sometimes you would get together and chill together.
Yes, sir.
And, but not a close friend, but friendly enough where he had wheels, so if you needed a ride, he might give you a ride.
Yes, sir.
So, regarding the questions about Bradley Renfro and David Grunwald, you testified that you may have seen them hung out together 2 or 3 times.
Yes, sir.
And I don't recall your exact testimony, so don't put words in your mouth, but as far as timing-wise, since you all went to school together, at least for that year, did you ever see them together after school when you guys would sometimes smoke out? Were you in a class together?
That I can't remember. This was so long ago.
Was it, let's try a few more, was it, bring you right up to the last time you started hanging out with him? Was it sometime over that summer where you guys were sometimes Jasper House and sometimes
Who are we talking about?
you and Bradley?
Yes, we were hanging out at the Jasper house before.
And he would go home sometimes?
Yes, sir.
Go home to his dad's?
Yes, sir. That lived right down the road.
And Bradley tell you why he wasn't just living at home, period, instead of,
No, sir.
did you ever ask?
No, sir.
So you knew David from school, but that summer, did you still associate with David Grunwald?
I think I saw him once and hung out with him that summer. I can't totally remember.
What do you think motivated you to give him a call for a ride
Um,
on November 13th?
him and I were talking, and he said that he was going to Palmer anyways.
Oh, I see. So you stayed in touch through social media?
Yes, sir.
Rather than, okay. You thought I was referring to just in person, but you carried on some sort of a casual relationship through social media.
Yes, sir.
Did you do much social media with Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
When did that stop?
After this whole thing went down.
Well, he didn't have a phone. He hadn't had a phone for.
He had like an iPod or something that I was able to text him on.
Do you remember when that was?
I don't. It was so long ago.
Your phone was searched as well, right? Or was it?
I don't think so.
iPods,
The iPod Touch, that's like an iPhone, but
the last
all right.
class of, before the real iPhones, right?
Mm.
You ever see them with an iPhone?
I think I have once. It was like an iPhone 4.
Do you recall the last time you saw Bradley before today?
3 years ago.
Is it hard to kind of piece all those pieces together 3
Yeah.
years later?
It is. Can't remember the last time I saw Bradley before today.
Well, approximately. Was it winter, summer, fall, breakup, those types of big?
I think it was breakup around
springtime?
then. Yeah.
So it would have been springtime 2016?
Yeah.
Where do you think you saw him? If you recall. Did you guys hang out a
Oh,
little bit?
you mean before today? I think I saw him at
Here's the thing.
Walmart.
If you can come up with, an on or about time, fine. But I don't want you to speculate if you really don't remember. If it was summer of 2015, that's kind of a window. If it's fall 2015,
The last time I saw him.
yeah, last time you hung out with him.
Okay, yeah, it was the summer of 2016.
Did you hang
Summer.
out with him in the fall of 2016? That you remember?
I believe so. I think in the fall, yeah. I did see Bradley in the fall 3 years ago.
Frequently or occasionally?
Occasionally.
Planned events or just kind of running into each other?
Just running into each other.
And you didn't see him you testified you didn't see, you saw Eric,
Yes.
right? And who was it that told you he had gone out to the garage when you left?
Can you repeat that?
When your brother picked you up,
Okay.
did somebody tell you that Eric was out in the garage when you left?
No.
Okay.
But I just told Eric's dad that my brother's here and I'm leaving. I didn't see nobody else.
All right. So that quite a while, well, your brother picked you up around 9 o'clock that night?
9 or 9:30.
You didn't see Bradley at all that evening then? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
sir.
Anybody say he was there?
No. I only saw Eric and Myler and his dad.
Eric didn't say other people were out in the garage?
No,
He
sir.
didn't invite you over to do that? So back to David Grunwald. During that fall time that you had run into Bradley Renfro, and I think you said springtime a little bit too. So that's spring, summer, fall, 2016, before David disappeared, David Grunwald. Do you recall during that period of time ever seeing Bradley Renfro in the company with David Grunwald?
Yes, sir. There was one time I saw them hanging out.
And do you remember in that time frame, approximately,
I don't remember when.
was it summer or fall or spring?
I want to say it was the end of summer.
And where were you at that time to observe this?
Um, I don't remember. I know I saw him at Walmart.
You happened to see David Grunwald and Bradley Renfro in a Walmart?
No, not together. The only time I saw them together was one time at Eric's house in the trailer.
And do you remember approximately when that was?
It was long before he disappeared. I don't remember the time.
And did you show up, or were you already there and David showed up, or?
Yeah, David showed up.
Do you remember what part of the premises you guys were in? House, downstairs, trailer, garage?
We were in the trailer.
And do you remember who else was with you before David came over?
I think Christian had just left. I can only think of Christian.
And remember, it was like afternoon, evening,
It was like 4 or 5 o'clock.
and you were already there.
Yes,
And Bradley was there.
it was after school.
It was after school, okay. And then David Grunwald comes by.
Yes.
Do you know if he was invited or just
I think he just showed up.
showed up? Do you know how long he stayed?
He only stayed for a couple hours, and then he went and hung out with Victoria.
And what were you guys doing?
Just playing games and smoking.
What kind of games did Bradley play?
We had an Xbox 360, and we normally only play Halo.
And you remember the layout of the trailer.
Yes.
So do you recall where you were sitting?
I know we were all at the table because we had the TV right in front of the table. And so we were all sitting at the table.
And that would be how many people?
It was me, Bradley, Eric, and David. So 4.
And so David came by sometime after school, late afternoon, stayed a while, then he wanted to go spend time with his girlfriend.
Yes, sir.
And that is the only time you saw David Grunwald
With Bradley,
with
yes.
Bradley Renfro. And
Other than school.
other than they went to the same school. Okay. I think that's all I have, Mr. Evans.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Kalajek.
Thank you.
Was it since we're talking about your opinions, was it your opinion that some of the people were taking the gang stuff to different levels?
Yes.
Who?
Eric was one of them. I noticed Austin would do it too. Bradley showed a little bit, but not as much as Eric and Austin.
Well, but I guess what I was getting at is the people that actually were carrying guns around. So you testify you saw Eric toting a handgun around,
Yes.
concealed on his person.
Yes.
And he subscribed to the gang mentality, correct?
What was that?
He also subscribed to the Crip philosophy,
Yes.
violence and drugs.
Yes.
Okay. And you saw the photo of Devin Peterson, who has got 2 guns in the photograph,
Yes, sir.
with the lay me in a blue coffin at the end. He is subscribing to the Crip philosophy,
Yes, sir.
violence and drugs. Right? Mr. Provost covered so much of this
Well,
gang stuff that
Well, honestly, Mr. Kalachek, you spent quite a bit of time on it, too.
I did. That's
And
what trial's about, Judge.
I understand. So he had his opportunity to cross-examine the defendant on those issues. You can do redirect on some of the statements he made, so
Yeah, I'll focus exactly on the ones that were covered.
that's fine.
Yeah. You know, when you were asked about degrees of friendship, do you remember in grand jury saying we were all best friends? I can show you those lines.
Yes, sir. I do remember
Okay.
that.
And grand jury was when?
A year ago?
No. December of 2016, does that ring a bell to you?
So it was 3 years ago.
Yeah. Do you think your memory was better back then as far as
Now? Yes.
degrees of friendship and the goings-on in 2016?
Can you,
Was it?
Can you repeat
Do you
that?
think your memory was better about November of 2016 and August of 2016 and September of 2016 when you were testifying before the grand jury in December of 2016?
That just confused my
Right.
brain.
Well, is your memory about 2016 better now, or was it better in December of
It
2016?
was better back then.
Okay. And as far as degrees of friendship, I asked you who your best friend was, and you said it was.
Devin.
If I asked Devin, he might say Austin, right?
I'm not sure.
Right, because you were all best friends.
Right.
Okay. And do you think sometimes it would vary? Sometimes you'd be best friends with? Well, could these opinions that Mr. Provost was asking you about friendships and best friendships, could they change depending on the day, the hour, the amount of marijuana?
Yes, we did. Some of us did have our ups and downs.
On the homelessness issue, another thing Mr. Provost brought up about the Jasper House, nobody here was an orphan, right? Everybody had parents.
Correct.
Bradley Renfro had 2 parents, right?
Correct.
Though they lived in separate households.
Correct.
Okay. You had parents.
Yes, sir.
All the other guys had parents, right?
Yes, sir.
Being at the Jasper House, were those choices made by all of you to be at the Jasper House?
Yes, sir.
Basis?
What,
He already testified, he didn't discuss that with Bradley. He just knew that Bradley would be there. Sometimes he'd go over to his father.
You'd have to lay a foundation, Mr. Kalachek.
well, yeah, I'll go with the same opinion foundation and Mr. Provost. Did you observe Bradley Renfro at the Jasper House?
Yes, sir.
Did you observe Eric Allmendinger at the Jasper House?
Sir.
Did you see Devin Peterson there with his brother?
Yes, sir.
Who else did you see there? Dominic Johnson on occasion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was anybody forcing them to be at the Jasper House?
No, sir.
What was the level of parental supervision at the Jasper House?
The girl that lived there, her parents were there too.
Yeah, and did they supervise all these people?
They'd keep an eye on them.
Was it like the Allmendinger household where drugs were permitted?
Yes.
And is it fair to, did people come and go
Yes, sir.
in the Jasper House?
Yes, sir.
So what I'm trying to get is like, true homelessness versus this type of situation. Was anybody forcing people to stay at the Jasper House?
No, sir.
Were there occasions?
Again, lay a foundation. Did he see
Well, he was
anybody?
there.
Well,
Yeah,
did he see anything?
Well, when you were there, was anybody forcing anybody to stay at the Jasper House?
No, sir.
Okay. And drugs were available when you were there?
Marijuana, yes.
Yeah. And when you were there, did you see people come and go
Yes, sir.
freely
Yes, sir.
and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you see Bradley Renfro at all times in 2016? Were you with him constantly?
Not constantly, but almost every day, yes.
Yeah. Almost every day in 2016?
Yes, in the summer.
Okay. With other people, with Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
And who else was there almost constantly?
Peterson, I was, Austin was, and the people that lived there.
So in terms of people being dragged into something or not dragged into something, when you were hanging out with Bradley Renfro, was he freely associating with you?
Yes,
And Austin?
yes,
And Eric?
yes,
And Dominic?
yes,
And Devin?
yes.
Now, in terms of origins, do you remember testifying that Bradley Renfro actually started out hanging out with Devin first at grand jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the line after, let me show you.
Give the page.
Our pages are different, my transcript is probably different, but mine is one away, but it's right after the sentence that Mr.
Provost referenced. Remember, I was the prosecutor asking you questions at grand jury. When I'm talking about Bradley Renfro, you talk about Colony, and then my question was, did he hang out with Allmendinger and Johnson? This is 1 month into the case, of course, and you said he did, but he was kind of dragged into it. He wasn't really associated with all of it. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but then I say, how did he explain to me how that happened? And you said he started to hang out with Devin at first, and then Devin started hanging out with Eric and all of them. Was that your testimony back then?
Yes, sir.
Is that true testimony?
Yes, sir.
Now, I did hear when Mr. Provost was asking you questions, you said you were afraid of Eric after he talked about the Crip thing, killing somebody or going to prison?
Yes, sir.
Now, would you agree that's inconsistent with some of the previous testimony you gave today? That nobody was afraid of anybody?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. The testimony you gave to Mr. Provost during his examination of you, that was different than what you told me when I asked you, was anybody in the group afraid of anybody? And you said no earlier this morning.
Well, I was only scared of Eric from that one point because what he told me.
Well, let me turn your attention to grand jury again in December of 2016. Questioned by me, did you have any reason to fear Eric or not? Your answer, no, we've gained up enough trust with each other to be like brothers. Was that your answer at grand
Yes, sir.
jury? Okay. Now you said, I asked you who was better buddies. Are you better buddies with them, or is Dominic better buddies with them? And you said, I would say Dominic, because they talk longer than him and I mean Eric. So you said Dominic and Eric were better buddies than you and Eric?
I mean, they were friends, but Dominic didn't live with us.
Okay. There are certain communications we have where they're saying, don't tell David. And that's about what was communication during November 13th, referring to you, where Dominic is saying to Eric, don't tell David about what they're talking about. They're referring to you. So does that support your notion that they were better friends than you were with Eric?
I didn't even know that they were saying that stuff.
Well, I know you don't. But, so is it possible that in this group, there were some people? Judge, he saw it for a year on a weekly or daily basis, as he just testified.
Okay,
It's the
what-
same kind of opinion as Mr. Provost elicited.
I'll
from
give you a little leeway. Go ahead.
So is it possible that people had like little secret arrangements within the group as to certain things?
What do you mean, little secrets?
Well, I just said, there's documented statements that Dominic Johnson on November 13th, when they were talking, said, don't tell David about this, meaning you, not David Grunwald. So is it possible that there were different levels of trust within this group? At
Yes.
different times?
Yes.
Okay. And my question, again, as to, remember I asked you, so would you say they're all pretty tight? Remember that question? And your answer, yeah?
Yes, I do.
And then, again, getting back to your testimony, that you were concerned about Eric, and maybe you were, but your previous testimony, I asked the question, in your opinion,
Go ahead.
Prosecutor's leaning over Mr. Evans.
I don't think he's
Mr.
trying to
Provost
refresh
has
his.
the transcript. I mean,
So-
it's page 118 of my transcript. It's not a real long transcript, but
It's his grand jury testimony. You have that in front of you? Okay, so what was your objection? Is he,
I think the prosecutor should be at the podium and not standing over.
well, he has to refresh his
I have two
recollection,
copies
but,
that
but,
do
but
that.
you need to ask him if he remembers first. And if he
Let me ask you
doesn't,
this.
he,
do you remember telling a grand jury that everybody in this group was super tight and there wasn't any way anybody was afraid of anybody else?
Yes, sir.
You didn't mention anything about being afraid of Eric at grand jury, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as far as specifically as to what your testimony, you were afraid when he started talking about the Crips, do you remember me saying, at the same time, you've told us that Eric wants to be a gang member, he's got a firearm, which he keeps loaded, correct? And my question, but that didn't raise any concerns on your part for anybody's safety? Do you remember what your answer was to that question?
Unless I read it.
Well, here, see if that helps refresh your recollection.
Where are we at?
The circled part and the arrow is your answer. Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sir.
What did you tell me when I said, after knowing that he was saying all this Crip stuff and he had a loaded gun, did that raise any concerns on your part for anybody's safety, not just yours, anybody's? What was your answer?
No, sir.
Now, after Mr. Provost's question, did anybody tell you Bradley was there? You said no. right?
After what question?
What's that?
After his question?
Yeah. He asked you, did anybody tell you whether Bradley was there on November 13th, right? And you said no just now.
Yes.
Well, at grand jury, you said something different, right?
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Right, let me see. Why don't you read this page? This is page 132 and 133 of my transcript. Yeah, for all I know, we could have the same transcript. I don't know where ours came from. I just know I have it.
do you have it, Mr. Provost? All right.
So why don't you just read those 2 pages to yourself? You done with those circled, highlighted, underlined parts? All right. Mr. Evans, I'm not suggesting that you lied when you answered Mr. Provost's question, but I do know that we're sitting here 3 years after the fact. So after you read your grand jury testimony, which happened in December of 2016, as to that very question about whether you learned from anybody, that was Mr. Provost's question, did anybody tell you Bradley Renfro was down on the 13th? Your grand jury testimony was different than today when you said no to him, right?
Your Honor, I have to, this is misstated
play it back, Judge.
Let me just see it.
I wrote it down, let's play back the question. It's nothing for the court to see, it's, the statement's recorded by the
Okay,
computer.
okay. What is your objection? To what the question he's asking, or the misstatement of the grand jury?
I'm sorry, is this a bench conference?
No.
Play it back.
So what I was asking Mr. Evans was, that night when he was there, taking a shower, moving out, did anybody tell you that, Bradley was there? He was only testified that he didn't know anybody was there. That's the timetable, time frame, that evening, not after David disappeared.
Let's play back the question. If that's the question, I'll move on. Let's play it back.
That's fine, we can play it back.
If the question is, I'm just saying, Judge, let's play it back.
Let's play it back, that's fine. Because he has testified that he didn't know anybody else was there, so. Okay, do you have log notes for me to see?
I have it.
Okay.
And
Do you think you can find that part?
it's,
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let the jury take a quick recess, come back, and we'll finish with this witness, and that'll be it for the day. But we need to locate where this is at, so, okay? That'll give you some time,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
Off record.
Summer of 2015, that's kind of a window. If it's fall 2015,
The last time I saw him,
yeah, last time you hung out with him.
okay, yeah, it was the summer of 2016.
Okay. Did you hang out with him in the fall of 2016? That you remember?
I believe so. I think in the fall, yeah. I did see Bradley in the fall, 3 years ago.
Frequently or occasionally?
Occasionally,
Planned events or just kind of running into each other?
just running into each other.
And you didn't see him on the, you testified you didn't see, I mean, you saw Eric,
Yeah.
right? And who was it that told you he had gone out to the garage when you left?
Can you repeat that?
When your brother picked you up,
Okay.
did somebody tell you that Eric was out in the garage when you left?
No.
Okay.
But I just told Eric's dad that my brother's here and I'm leaving. I didn't see nobody else.
All right. So that quite a while, well, your brother picked you up around 9 o'clock that night?
9 or 9:30.
You didn't see Bradley at all that evening then? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
sir.
Anybody
All right.
say he
That-
was there?
That part you wanted to hear?
No. I only saw Eric and
No, it didn't, that question hasn't come up yet, but it could be the next one that's coming up.
Okay.
I only saw Eric and Myler and his dad.
Eric didn't say other people were out in the garage?
No,
Didn't
sir.
invite you over to do that? So back to David Grunwald.
I don't know if it was that one or another one, but that does go to the heart of this. The question is, Eric didn't say, I didn't catch the rest of that question.
I can go back.
Okay.
Anybody around 9 o'clock that night?
9 or 9:30.
You didn't see Bradley at all that evening then? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
sir.
Anybody say he was there?
No.
That's-
I only saw Eric and
That's a pretty open-ended question. Anybody say that he was there? doesn't-
Okay, so what follow-up do you want to do on that?
No context to that
Oh,
evening.
it is. Anybody see him there that night?
No, but he's saying anybody tell you that he was there.
Right.
Question marks, doesn't say on the 13th, he said.
I only saw Eric and
18th, he said anybody
I only saw Eric
tell you,
and-
teen, he said
I
anybody
only saw Eric
tell you,
and-
teen, he said.
That's okay. Okay, so this is what has been established to his testimony, both on direct and cross. He did not see the defendant there that night. That's clear. I mean, he's been consistent, so we don't need to revisit that. Your question is, did anybody tell him he was there?
That was Mr. Provost's question.
Yeah, did anyone tell him he was there?
He said no.
And he said no, correct.
That's not the case. He did talk to Eric later, and Eric told him exactly the people who were there, minus the victim.
That's not what I was asking.
That was after that.
It was after David dispute. I was talking
Yeah,
about when he
that
was
was
there,
after.
when he was packing up. If Eric did not tell Mr. Evans that Bradley was there, did anybody else that evening who was there say anything about Bradley being there?
That is a different question. I agree. Mr. Provost did not
Never let
qualify
that
it.
context.
No, and we should probably, I mean, just by us capturing a small snippet, it might have come up again. I was taking notes. It might have come up again, but the bottom line is the question was anybody. It didn't say on November 13th, said anybody tell you that
Okay,
Bradley
but-
Renfro was there. I mean, and I'm not sure if it was touched upon later. This was a very lengthy.
That was the end of the cross, the very end. This was at the very end.
Okay, but
Okay, but I do have to, Mr. Kalichuk, I don't want to allow the hearsay statement by Eric Allmendinger talking to this witness about who was there that night and what happened to come in at this point. I don't think he opened the door for all of that to come in. I mean, he has no right to, you can't cross-examine Eric Allmendinger, I mean, it's hearsay coming through this witness. It wouldn't have come in otherwise, and I don't think he really did open the door. I just don't think he did.
I'm a little leery that we've only examined a snippet of the cross, but my ears perked up. He called for hearsay. It wasn't me, the defense, the cross said, anybody tell you that my client was there?
He did.
He did. And true, it followed questions about the 13, but his question was not
But
specific.
I'm still not gonna go down the road where a month later, he's having conversations with Eric, and Eric's telling him everything that happened, for that to come in at this point.
Months later, it's days later.
Well-
His grand jury was early December, the murder was November. So between November 13th and grand jury, which is.
He had contact with Eric Allmendinger, and Eric was telling him what was happening that night. That's the offer of proof you're giving me.
Well, he told him who was there except for the victim. So, again, the purpose of this was, I didn't want to.
I just, at this point in time, I just don't think that was the intent of the question. I don't think we need to go into, the conversations he had with Eric later on. His statement is coming in. Everybody's agreed with that, right? And there's been no motion to withhold the defendant's statement coming in, his interviews, correct? Huh?
It's just the redacted parts that we.
And the redacted were based on prior acts and so forth, right? Okay. And I believe, just scanning through this morning for the first time, his interview, he talks about who's there. Is that accurate, Mr. Provost? Your client?
Yes.
Okay, so,
That's what we said in our opening statement.
so that's another reason why. I mean, it's not like this is the only, I mean, it's not, so I don't know why do we have to go through that,
Why is
so.
Mr. Provost asking that question on cross-examination? Nobody told you my client was there. If they admitted, why are we even opening these doors when there's two more witnesses in the home?
I don't think that door should have been opened, to be honest with you. I think it was a mistake on Mr. Provost's part. But I do think the context of that questioning was that night, because it was all about when Mr. Evans left, who he saw there, what he was doing. I mean, we've heard his entire story of what happened that night, and it's pretty consistent that he never knew who was there, except for the three other people. And but he did just testify, he thought that the other kid, the neighbor kid, was there at some point. So I'm not sure where that information came from. But, so it's, I mean, to litigate this at this point in time, I just think it's just that this isn't the timing of it, and I really don't think he intended to open the door to go all through all of this. So I think you can clarify, if you would like, the following question. When you asked her the question that Eric didn't tell you that the defendant was there, that was about that night, correct? And then just leave it at that, without getting into the details. I'll let you answer that to clarify it if you need to, Mr. Kalichuk. But I don't think we need to get into Eric's whole story that he told this defendant, because that just kind of goes beyond really what is his purpose of his testimony is, and that's what he saw in the interactions with this whole group and how they intermingle together, his observations.
Clarify something with Mr. Evans.
That's fine, that's fine.
While he's here, can I ask him these statements he made about what Eric Allmendinger told him happened that day, which was essentially the.
And that was that grand jury you're looking at?
Right, and, it was essentially that Dominic Johnson, Renfro, and Barrett were in the camper, smoking marijuana, and he said David wasn't there. He did mention David being there, didn't say anything about a murder, so it wasn't anything about a murder, it was just putting the people, as far as what he told David Evans, and as far as what David testified to a grand jury, it wasn't like, Eric told me that, David Grunwald was assaulted in the trailer. It was just, he's put the defendants in the trailer and said they were smoking marijuana. That's all David testified to in grand jury. So it wasn't gonna be like a whole rendition, but I'm curious as to whether, if Mr. Evans, I really didn't ask him when he learned these things exactly. He said it was at school, so I'm assuming it wasn't on the 13th, it was likely.
After that.
Followed. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir. Okay. So,
We're talking a few days, but.
still, I just don't think it's necessary at this point. So I just think it's not needed. And I don't think it was really opening the door. I think Mr. Provost meant to ask the question. So the night of the 13th, did you hear if anybody else was there? I mean, he was asking for hearsay, I agree, but I think he knew what the answer would be, so that's probably why he went down that road, but I'm not gonna find that he opened the door for conversations that occurred later, just that night, so we'll just leave it at that. Do you have any more impeachment information for him?
No, that was it, and I'm almost done.
Okay.
Now, I do need the court, so I was fortunate
To have it so that our guesstimates worked. I have two witnesses, and the court knows that the witnesses are not the friendliest people to the prosecution.
Yeah, I know.
I prosecuted Mr. Allmendinger's son. I prosecuted Mrs. Peterson's son. We've convicted both her sons, and they're in prison. So we're not on friendly terms with these witnesses, and I think I would ask the court to tell them they have to.
I will do that.
You know,
They're both here?
Right.
Mr. Allmendinger's here?
Yeah, they're both here.
Those are very lengthy testimonies, and we're not gonna be able to do that today.
And we might have to shift our, and we knew this was gonna happen eventually, Judge.
Yeah.
Our luck was gonna run out, that so far it
No,
worked.
well, I will say you guys have done a fairly accurate job of estimating who we have, but after we excuse the jury, I will bring them in and tell them they are under subpoena, they need to be here tomorrow.
and obviously,
And you want them both here at 8:30 tomorrow?
well, we could give them estimates, if Mr. Provost could help with that. Sure. Ballparking, so they don't have to wait in the hallway.
I have no objection to doing that. I think it's important to make sure they're here, so we don't have to look for them, so.
I would propose Mrs. Peterson, unless the court wants to do it today. She asked me to ask the court, but I don't know if the jury.
No, she's fairly lengthy, so it's gonna be a lot of cross, I think, with her, so.
So I just wanted, yes, it's adversarial right now, but in case the court is concerned, when we walk out of this courtroom, we leave this here. That I know about Mr. Kalachek from this one case.
Well, I've heard nothing from JS that there's issues in the hallway, so I presume it's okay.
Every trial, if we didn't, it wouldn't be a trial,
And-
so I mean.
And the thing is, the witnesses we've had so far are not the ones that I'm concerned about. So it was easy to be accommodating. Some of the witnesses coming up are adversaries, and it will become adversarial as we amp up their, objections and rules of evidence. But
Well, what I would ask, I know you guys have probably, how many transcripts do you have?
Of the trial,
Do you have one trial, one grand jury?
I have grand jury, and Dominic Johnson's trial almost complete. I saw another chapter, another.
Do you have the witnesses coming up, do you have their transcripts?
For the ones that were scheduled for today, but not for,
I think the only one left is Mr. Allmendinger.
Do you have his prior testimony? Okay. And you have it?
No,
So that becomes the hard part about this case, is the more trials we do, the more transcripts, and how do you refer to them, how do we get them? You guys, the state doesn't pay for this stuff, so
Well, the grand jury transcript,
that's
I
easy.
believe came in discovery.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's the trial testimony that if you're going to impeach them on, we gotta be clear when and where and what.
I don't foresee, for me, I don't foresee issues with Mr. Allmendinger and Mrs. Peterson as far as impeachment. And with Mr. Evans, it wasn't so much that I was trying to impeach him, but it's been a long time he's testified, grand jury,
Mhm.
trial one, trial two. I wouldn't expect a witness, I mean, he's not making this his whole life, he's moved on, he's working. I wouldn't expect the witness to know all these things, nor would I expect them to read it if I handed them all the transcripts. But the state, we only have the grand jury, we are only operating off of log notes with trial one and trial two, we did not pay for.
So if you needed impeachment information from the trial, you would have to do a playback of some
No.
kind? You don't have the CDs?
I'm not, I do.
You have the CDs, but it's locating them, so.
But I don't anticipate doing any of that with Mr. Allmendinger and Mrs. Peterson. And with Mr. Evans, my default is gonna be going back to, unless I see something glaring in the log notes, my default is grand jury, because that's when it was fresh in everybody's mind.
And that's what Mr. Provost used, so he didn't do his prior trial testimony, I don't think, so.
But with some witnesses, more things came to light as we moved on with the case. But I don't foresee tomorrow being a situation where I'm gonna be focusing on transcripts then, because again, my opinion is that, Mr. Evans probably knew the most about the circumstances of that night.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Peterson, it gets a little bit further in there, Mrs. Peterson has less knowledge, it's more after it's back. And we know what Mr. Allmendinger testified to twice already, so.
Mr. Provost? I guess what he's saying is he doesn't intend to have a lot of impeachment to occur. I don't know what your position is, but.
Well, I think I agree because, like I said, this first weeks of witnesses, don't have a whole lot to say about Bradley Renfro. The witnesses coming up are gonna have a lot to say.
And who is that? Well, I take it before they start testifying about his specific stuff he said, we're just gonna play the interviews, right? Get those out there? Is that your intent fairly soon, or?
And, that's gonna be fairly late in the trial. We still have, in terms of witnesses, I still have to get through,
I mean, there's a lot of, Mr. Provost, there's still a lot of foundational stuff that there has to go through. You gotta go through the autopsies. You gotta go through Trooper Wegston identifying a lot of evidence, I think, since he's
Yeah,
not
but
been
the
here.
scientific evidence, we're not really disputing.
But it still takes time to get through that, get it on the record. I mean, it's part of the state's case in chief, because they still have to prove that it happened, so.
to me, I just figured
Yeah.
that we would have to put some witnesses over, because I'm not, it goes the way it goes. I'm not gonna limit Mr. Crowell's cross-examination. I'm gonna have to ask some questions I regret sometimes,
Yeah.
time.
So-
I'm not concerned about, which day we get which person, but I'm confident we can get the bulk of the case done this week. Because we've been going, we haven't had too many gaps as a court.
No, we haven't.
So,
Well, let's finish out with this witness, and then I'll excuse the jury, you can bring in tomorrow's witnesses, and I'll explain to them they have to be here. Okay?
because Miss Peterson said something about I can't be here tomorrow. I don't know what that means.
Why don't you go get her right now? So let's just see. And how long do you expect her testimony to be?
I'm not calling her as a witness, being cross.
Yeah.
Well, the transcript,
You know, wasn't much.
Well, Judge, I could tell exactly, her, so we can, this isn't science, because every trial is different, but last time in the Johnson trial, she started at 3:22 PM, and we went off record with her at 3:52 PM, but that was a different attorney, I think, her
How long was the direct exam, do you know?
The direct exam, the cross started at 347, so I went from 322 to 347 in 27 minutes.
Okay, well, bring her in, and I will just talk to her directly. Find out if she can be here at 8:30 tomorrow, be the first witness, and be done by 9:30.
She didn't explain to me why she quote-unquote couldn't be here tomorrow.
Is it work, or?
She's under subpoena unless it's emergency surgery. I don't see what subpoena would, subpoena trumps everything else.
Yeah,
But, yeah, if we could.
I don't want to
agree
hold her.
Can we agree to, if we bring both of them, can we ballpark Mr. Allmendinger to be on the safe side? Should we say 9:30 for him to be waiting in the hallway?
That's fair enough. I think he'll cooperate. He hasn't really balked at anything at this point, so. All right, so bring them both in at this time. Come on in, folks. I need to talk to you for a little bit. If you can come up to the podium, okay? All right, first of all, ma'am, what is your name for the record?
Alana Peterson?
Okay. And Ms. Peterson, you're under subpoena to appear at this trial, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Here's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna put you on for tomorrow morning right at 8:30, okay? So
Okay.
you should be done by 9:30, okay? So I expect you to be here promptly in the morning. Any issue with that?
No.
Okay. So I will see you at 8:30,
Okay.
okay? Mr. Allmendinger, can you come up? And you understand that you're under subpoena too, correct, sir?
Yep.
And I'll need you at 9:30, okay? You're gonna follow Ms. Peterson in the morning. And then once you guys are finished, you'll probably be released from your subpoenas, okay? At least for this one, okay? So I'll see you at 8:30
Okay.
and you at 9:30.
Can we get that in writing? I'm trusting him.
Oh, it'll be close, but I think it'll be 9:30 to 9:45, something like that.
If you want to, it's going to be a while before I wrap up here, but if you want to call Ms. Steve,
I have.
and get all the arrangements, just tell her that you're going to be tomorrow morning, and she'll tell you which hotel and all that.
Yeah, and she said that you would give us $50 each for food.
Right?
Well, you work that out with the state. They have you under subpoena, okay?
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you folks in the morning. All right, so I guess at this point in time, we can bring the jury in, wrap up, and we'll start tomorrow at 8:30. Okay, all right, bring them back in. Okay, please be seated, everybody. We are going to finish up the redirect, and that should be it for today. So go ahead, Mr. Cowett.
Thank you. So, Mr. Evans, just one last thing. So, the question Mr. Provost asked about others telling you what happened on the Allmendinger property, I believe he was referring to whether anybody told you on November 13th what else had happened there. And your answer was that nobody told you anything on November 13th. What happened there, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thanks.
Okay, sir, you can be excused. Does any of the parties need to keep him under subpoena? Mr. Provost?
No, he's not my subpoena, but I don't anticipate harm to circumstance.
Okay.
We will cover everything.
Okay, you're excused. You can return back. Your subpoena's up. Okay, members of the jury, we are done for the day. Again, report tomorrow at 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday, and we got another full day scheduled, okay? Get some rest. All right, thank you. We can be off record.